Carl,
How you
uh,
doing, Larry?
fine. How are you? How do you smell?
Uh, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't get asked that very often.
No, the entire house smells like Febreze right now, but
Well,
we
I
used
was,
the
I was,
whole can of it.
we've got a dog, and that's happened more than once. And we tried tomato juice; it never works. There's a product called Skunk Off. You can get it
Oh,
from
that's
your
good to
vet.
know.
Yeah, get it from your vet. They sell it all over the place, and it actually works.
Oh, okay. Well,
Skunk Off.
I just tried tomatoes, and I covered the dog with tomatoes and rubbed it all over. And as soon as I did, he decided to shake.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we have tomatoes all over the laundry room.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than the lingering odor of skunk in your house for a few days.
Yeah, well, it's it's a fun way to start the day, let me tell you. How are you, Aaron?
I'm great. So far, so good.
Oh, I don't know if you heard me, but it's 9:30, so I'm going to start. And
Hmm.
good morning, everybody. Am I okay? Yeah? All right. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing can watch on YouTube. Participants who registered in advance will connect to the hearing by phone or with a compatible electronic device and have the option of participating via video or audio only. Participants will be muted automatically upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Please mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. Those participating by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when their item is heard. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use the share screen function or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. My name is Nancy Oman, and I will be chairing this hearing. Panel members participating via WebEx webinar and who can be seen and heard are Larry Clay, Aaron Cheng, and Carl Niffel. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request by email. Please include your name, address, and an email address. Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto local appeal body known as TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto local appeal body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first with a presentation of the application, and then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any minutes to be confirmed?
Good morning, Madam Chair and panel members. Yes, there's 2 sets of minutes, February the 15th of this year, as well as February the 22nd.
Okay, panel members, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes for those 2 meetings? Moved by Mr. Nipfel. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Cheng. Okay, so the motion to approve the Feb 15th and 22nd minutes, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Cheng. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Panel, or staff, any declarations of interest? Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a potential conflict with number 13118 Gray Road. The agent is a colleague of mine.
Okay, so item number 13. Mr. Nipfel has a conflict. Anyone else? No? All right. Are there any files to be closed this morning, Madam Deputy Secretary?
Through you,
Treasurer?
Madam Chair, no files
Are you
to be
aware of
closed.
any deferrals this morning?
Not for this morning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will start with item number 1, which is 105 Langley Avenue. We have before us a copy of the survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 1 photograph of trees on the property. We have email correspondence from the planner. They're asking for a condition. And correspondence in support from 91 Riverdale 107, which is adjacent, 103 adjacent of Langley Avenue, as well as 101 and 99. I only show the owner listed as a speaker. Do we have the speaker on the line?
Elizabeth, you've been unmuted.
Good morning. Can I confirm that you're hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could start just by stating your name and address, and then I will see if we may not need a presentation, but if you can start with
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Dapre, and along with my husband, Daniel Manicom, we are the homeowners of 105 Langley Avenue in Toronto, M4K1 Bravo 4.
All right, thank you. Panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go to questions? Mr. Nipfel, I believe, has a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To the applicant, I don't have any difficulty with the application except for variance number 5. Am I correct in assuming that that's an existing condition? It's the one about instead of 100% front yard landscaping, you have 10?
I would point out, having done the math myself, that I believe that 10% is a typo and should be 90%.
Okay, that's my second question because it clearly doesn't look like 10%.
I believe that's an error in the document itself, because when you put the 11 into the 12, that is 90%. So it's a 10% reduction, but 90% of the softscape will be maintained.
Our staff are just looking into this, So if there are, we'll get back to this in a second. Are there any other questions, panel members?
Chair, I just note that if you look at the actual meters squared, that appears to be accurate. And I think it's just the actual percentage is an error.
Yeah. If you just look at the site plan as well, there's clearly more than 10% landscaping. So I'm inclined to agree with the applicant that it's probably just a typo. And it doesn't appear that it's something that would affect notice because they're providing more than the notice indicated.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would agree with that position.
So Sabrina, do we have to, when we approve, do we do this as an amendment or do you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll do it as an amendment.
Okay,
So we will leave it as 11.02 square meters.
Okay, and then variance number 5 would just change to 90%.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, panel members, is there do you have any other questions? Okay, Elizabeth, we don't have any other questions, so we will make this amendment and, should the panel members want to approve the application, it'll be approved as amended. Is there anything you want to add before we take this matter into committee for a decision?
I did prepare a brief statement, but if you don't need to hear it, then that's fine with me.
Okay. All right, panel members, we're in committee. Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a very straightforward application. I note that the next door neighbor 107 is in support, and what is being proposed replicates front porches along the street. So I frankly don't have any difficulties with the application. If my colleagues are in agreement with proceeding, I'd like to move approval subject to, I should have asked the applicant if she knows about planning condition number 3, which is basically to tie the approval to plans.
Okay, so that's a motion then, and Mr. Clay seconds that motion. So motion to approve this application as amended with variance number 5 reading 90% equals 11.02 meters squared and the planning condition to tie to plans. Moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? This carries unanimously, so your application has been approved. Item number 2, 414 Lauder Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, revised site plan, covering letter from the agent, and staff reports from forestry. They're asking for condition number 2. We have a transportation report asking for conditions. And, okay, and I only show the agent as a speaker. Do you have the agent on the line?
Sorab, you've been unmuted.
Good morning, Mr. Ibrahim. You there?
Sorab Ibrahim, you've been unmuted. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to attempt to call him. If you wish to move to the next item, we can move back to this
I
one.
would like to do that. Okay, panel members, we're going to go to item number 3 while we wait for staff to try to get this agent on the line. All right, and item number 3, 40 Aldridge Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and planning is asking to refuse variance number 3. Okay, and I have the agent and the owner listed as speakers. Do you have the agent?
Siddiqui, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, committee members. This is Arshad Siddiqui, architect and authorized agent for the owner at 40 Aldridge Avenue.
Okay,
We are located at Georgetown, Ontario.
okay, great.
Uh,
Are you aware of the planning recommendation to refuse variance number 3?
yes, and we have a response to that.
Okay, did you
So
want
you want me to just jump to that variance? Basically,
Yeah, if you could just tell us what your thoughts are on that?
yeah. So the proposed partial third floor addition is basically towards the rear side of the existing house footprint, and there will be no change in front elevation from the street view. And the variance is because of the shape of the roof, which is kept similar to the existing second floor slope, roof slope. And to meet the zoning bylaw, we have to slope the roof to the other direction. And that will, with the 7 feet 6 inch clear height proposed for third floor, this will make the space inside third floor a very small one, like an attic, not even a usable space. And to quote some precedents, there are similar third story addition, a more like contemporary one on the same street on 54 Aldridge Avenue, and within the neighborhood on 85 Alton Avenue. So we are not sure that if planning staff has considered those precedents while commenting, but we don't see it as a major variance. It's not very visible from the street. It's a rear third story addition, and because of the existing roof slope, we can't change the slope uh, and make the use space unusable.
Okay, let me see if there are any other questions for you. And you are speaking on behalf of the owner, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any other questions? No? Is there anything else you would like to add, Mr. Siddiqui?
Yes, we do have supporting neighbors. They were not able to provide letters or come to this hearing, but both adjacent northern and southern neighbor and the one across, Miss Mitchell, Ryan, Latzia, Tamara, and Jeff, all are in support of this third story addition, and they have no objections, so that can help.
Okay. I think there is another question, Mr. Niffel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To the applicant, if variance number 3 is not approved, you need to go back to the drawing board and start all over again, or can you proceed with variations?
We can work with the planning. We tried explaining them, and it was only 7 days ahead of the hearing, and they were asking to change the roof, which would have caused a lot of changes to the drawing. So we said, let us proceed with the current situation in the hearing, and we can explain what the roof angles are, and because of that, we are not able to modify the design as such. But we can work back with planning staff and see what they accept. But
So in effect, if my colleagues and I were inclined to support the planning department recommendation, what would make the most sense here would be a deferral for you to work with planning. Is that correct?
that is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, let's take it into committee then for a decision. Mr. Clay?
Thanks, Chair. I don't always agree with planning staff on their recommendations, but in this instance, I actually do. I go around and look at the prevailing character of this street and adjacent streets, and while I appreciate that the applicant has noted a couple of third-story additions, I think this is very much a predominantly two-story neighborhood, maybe 2.5 in extreme situations. But I do think the sidewall is a little bit high, and as Carl pointed out, I think maybe a deferral might be in order in this case, so that the applicant can go back and negotiate with planning to come up with something that's a little bit more in keeping with the character of the street.
Okay. Does anybody else have a comment? If not, you can make the motion then.
Aaron, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I'm not sure if it's the right one, but I have a more like a technical question to the city staff. So in this case, let's say there is a dispute and the applicant is going for an appeal, or it is approved in the opposite way. Can the City of Toronto appeal the decision? Is that in that position with the new Bill 23?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, good, thanks. I think I would agree with Larry with a deferral.
Yeah, so why don't we just move a motion to defer?
Okay. So, Mr. Clay, you're moving a motion to defer?
For the purposes of the applicant to discuss this application further with city staff.
And did you want a second, Mr. Chang? Okay, so that motion's moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Chang. All in favor? That motion carries. And just to the agent, perhaps when you come back, you could submit the letters of the neighbors, like well in advance, so that the members can see them before the meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Were you able to get? All right, so we're going back, panel members, to item number 2, 414 Lauder Avenue.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of panel. My name is Sohrab Ibrahim, the architect and agent for 414 Lauder Avenue.
Okay, I'm just going to read what we have before us again. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a revised site plan, covering letter from yourself, the agent. We have a staff report from forestry asking for condition number 2. Transportation is also asking for a condition. Now, I have a question to you, sir. In my notes here, I believe in your covering letter, you talked about revising the purpose, and I'm not sure, are you deleting variances number 2 and 7?
So we are not revising the purpose. So basically 414 Lauder Avenue is a sisters project of 412 Lauder Avenue, and the description of the project was a bit confusing in our last presentation for 412 Lauder. So we decided just to clarify the description, just to say that it's not a triplex, it's a duplex with a rental basement, which will be equal of 3 units in total at the end. Exactly the same as 412 Lauder.
Okay, so you're fine then with the way the purpose reads?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and then what about variance 2? Because we're going by the notice here regarding the driveway width and
Correct.
Variance number 7. Are you deleting those?
Yes, we are removing, as we agreed in our committee meeting for 412 Lauder Avenue, we decided to remove one of the parking spots in the back, and the total number of the parking spots in the back would be 2 parkings only.
Okay, so I just want to be 100% sure. So variance number 2, which talks about that you're required 2.6, the driveway is to be 2.4 meters in width, you're removing that. Is that right?
Correct.
And
yes.
then variance number 7, a maximum of 2 parking spaces are permitted, and you were asking for 3, but you're sticking with 2, so you're removing variance number 7 also.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Anything else that's changing?
Not at all.
Okay. So let me see if the panel have any questions. I don't know that we need a presentation. Mr. Chang has a question for you.
Hi, hello. A very quick one. When you increase back the driveway from 2.4 to 2.6, are you reducing the front yard landscape?
Basically, we are not increasing the width of the driveway. We are just removing the parking spots in the back. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
And the green space in the back would be increased a lot because we're just taking 1 parking spot away.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just for reference in the future, do we need to substitute a different site plan? If someone was researching this, the bylaw says you can have a maximum of 2 spaces and the site plan shows 3. So the site plan is no longer valid. Do we need to put a note in our decision or in the minutes, or it's just a question so we don't create confusion in the future?
Are you able to supply this electronically to our staff like today? A revised site plan? Mr. Ibrahim?
I believe I have sent it, like this is the revised site plan that we are seeing on the screen.
Oh, yeah, it has 2, okay.
And to be honest, we have provided the one that includes both of the projects, like
Yeah.
412 as well, so that
Yeah.
we have the record to keep our promise to the city for 412 as well, just to make it recorded.
Okay, Sabrina, so you're good with what we have? Okay, so we have it, Carl, so staff are
Okay,
okay.
thanks, good.
Any other questions, panel members? Alrighty, we're ready to take this into committee then. Anything else you want to add, sir, before we make a decision on this?
That was all.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, panel members, we're in committee. Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And unless my colleagues wish to speak otherwise, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 2 and the condition the transportation is listed. This actually replicates a previous decision of the committee for the property immediately next door. I do not see that there's any negative implications for neighboring properties or community character, and I'm pleased to move a motion of approval subject to those 2 conditions.
As amended, right?
As amended, my mistake, sorry.
Okay, we have a motion before us with the conditions outlined by Mr. Nipfel, and we are deleting variance number 2 and variance number 7. So as amended and seconded by Mr. Cheng. All in favor? Okay, this carries unanimously. Okay, the application's been approved. Item number 4, 2374 Gerrard Street East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, revised site plan, floor plan, and elevations, as well as a revised zoning waiver, a covering letter from the agent, a previous decision affecting the property, a parking map from the agent. We have email correspondence from planning asking for a condition, forestry's asking for condition number 2, and we have support from 2376, which is next door, and a concern's been raised by number 13 Belleville Street. I do show that individual as a speaker and the agent. Do you have both speakers?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I do.
Okay. Do you have the agent first, I guess?
Bart, you've been...
Yes. Good morning. Good morning, committee members. My name is Bart Soki. I'm the architect and agent for the project.
Hi, Mr. Soki. Before I go to the opposition, I would just like you to clarify in your covering letter, are you amending variance number 2 to read 71.6%, which is equal to 97.7 square meters?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you're formally making that amendment then. So if you could do a presentation, because I do have one opposition speaker, and we'll start the clock pretty much when you start speaking.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Going through the items of variance number 1 with the accessory unit area, what we're doing there is, it's an existing basement space that's being converted to a dwelling unit. So we're not increasing the size or the massing of the building in any way. And although it does, we are exceeding the permitted accessory unit area. In terms of FSI for this building, the FSI is actually 1.0, and with this new unit, the total FSI will be 0.85. So we are within that limit. But just in terms of available space in the building, it's an efficient use of it, and it creates a new dwelling unit. Item number 2, variance number 2, we, in working with planning, we made available as much area as we could as possible for soft landscaping, and then any of the paved areas, the walkway, from the street back, and also the parking areas in the back are all specified as permeable paving. So we were able to get it up to 71.6%. And if you take a look at so you can see that area on the site plan, it's on the screen. And well, why don't we stay there for a moment with that one? And just in going to variance number 3 with the soft landscape between the laneway suite and the lane itself, we realize that's quite a reduction below what's permitted. But in looking at the size of the lot and the value of having parking, being able to add parking to it, especially for the main building, it made sense to be able to to get the parking spaces at the rear, along with the laneway suite, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to put permeable pavers at the rear. So in totality, the soft landscaping on the site, we feel is fairly consistent with the neighborhood. If you could pull up that drawing that shows the support drawing that shows the parking and soft landscaping in the area. That's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for it's just a single drawing that says laneway parking and rear yards. No, that's not it.
Is it?
Oh, it's the E4 parking map, I think, is the one we're looking for there. Yeah.
Is it part of your revised plans, or where is it?
No, it was a single support.
Is it in your covering letter?
No, it was sent earlier.
Okay.
As one drawing, as one document. Well, I guess it looks like we don't have it, but what we were trying to show was that the parking at the rear along the lane was what we were proposing is quite consistent. There's the park it's very well parked. There's quite a volume of parking along the back lane, and being able to park on Gerard itself is not very easy. So this is it's quite a plus to be able to park at the rear, and as a consequence we have quite a reduced soft landscape being proposed between the laneway suite and the lane itself. So what in summary, we tried to maximize soft landscaping as much as possible, and then add the component of permeable paving to all the hardscaping in the rear yards.
Okay, I'm going to go to the opposition now. From what I read, I think some of the concerns are about the laneway. But do you have Ms. McDonald on the line?
Aaron, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Hi, can you speak up a little bit and please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Erin McDonald and my address is 13 Belleville Street, Toronto, Ontario, M4E3X9.
Okay, you have 5 minutes. Will you start the clock now to state your concerns?
Sure. I also sent in some correspondence that I see listed down there.
Yeah. We've
So
read it. Just,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will just summarize quickly. We've lived behind this property for the past 4 years. We've endured a lot of construction, dirt, dust, and noise while the rebuild was taking place. The property now sits unoccupied with frequent construction visits and is a significant amount of mud. The damage to our laneway has been significant. Us and our neighbors have continued to get flat tires. We just fixed our 3rd flat tire because of improper site cleanup. You can also see in that photo that there was an additional laneway suite built last year. It was not built to plan, so therefore it also sits unoccupied. Our interest is in the developer completing their work as quickly as possible. We do not want to prevent them from completing it, but we also want them to fix the damage to the laneway, and we want them to adhere to all city bylaws, and we want them to pay all of the required development fees to the City of Toronto. We can see that the application is for 4 dwelling units and that there is an additional dwelling unit in the laneway suite. If you look at the plans, you can see in the next appendix item that we believe that there is an intention to create 2 rental units in the laneway suite. Appendix B and C. There we go. So you can see if drywall was put up where the red line is on Appendix B, there would be 2 separate units. If there was no intention of creating 2 separate dwelling units, then there would not be the 2 entry doors right next to each other there. And so we asked the committee, consider a condition that any approval to the laneway suite be that it is built in accordance with the drawings and maintained as a single unit in perpetuity. And we also request a condition that the laneway be fixed to the satisfaction of the City of Toronto Transportation Services, and perhaps before the application can be finalized. Thank you so much for your consideration and for your time.
Thank you. I'm just looking at your letter, and I'll just so you know, the committee only has jurisdiction with respect to the variances. So I see you have asked for a condition. If the committee chooses to approve the application, that we tie it to plans and drawings, that we can do. In terms of laneway repairs and the other conditions you're asking for, that is not something that this committee can add as a condition. I just would like you to be aware of that. But I will have the agent back to speak to the issues you've raised with respect to the laneway. And
Sure.
perhaps...
A quick question, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Clay.
Thanks. It's not necessarily germane to our deliberations today, but you did note in your letter and also verbally that there is another laneway suite along the lane which was not built according to plans. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so there is a laneway suite built last year, 2378. From what I can tell from the building permit site is that they have not built to plan, so they need to adjust some windows. They built a basement and it doesn't have the necessary plumbing in the basement. And so it has sat unoccupied. They have also not, because they are, I guess, still under construction technically, they have not finished the hard and softscaping that they committed to.
Okay, so it hasn't probably received yet its final inspection for under its building permit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had under the building permit site, from what I can see, they have to fix these items before they can have a final inspection.
Okay, great, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Zoke, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you speak to the issues in particular, the laneway and what you heard the Ms. McDonald say?
Yes, of course. I can fully appreciate that, the frustration and the inconvenience, and with ongoing construction, this project's been under the main building has been under construction for quite some time, and so I completely understand that frustration. I can say that the owner who has gone through considerable difficulty with the just related to the builder, is very keen to get this project finished and sorted out. So that's been an ongoing process to clean up some problems with being able to close permits and get occupancy. So they indeed would like to get this done as quickly as possible. In terms of the laneway suite itself, the two doors, because we have at the front of the laneway, there's a fenced-in private yard space at the front of the laneway suite. It's maybe easiest to see it on the site plan, yeah. And so what we're trying to do there is, with bin access and the bikes and so on at the side of the lane, and then the amenity space, the outdoor amenity space related to the laneway suite at the south side, the two doors made it, that just gave us some convenience, so that you could go, out to the side to, for bins and bikes more easily, and then or directly out to the south amenity space without having to go around through a gate. So that was the intent of having those two doors there. But in terms of the laneway suite itself, they're just wanting to have one unit there. They're not looking to put two units in there.
Okay.
Okay.
And would the owner be open to Ms. McDonald contacting him or her if there's any issues with the laneway being left sort of, with potholes and whatever that from the construction, that she can at least go to them and bring it to their attention? So I know it's not our jurisdiction, but I'd just like to know if there's some kind of open dialogue that the owner would be willing to engage in.
I think they would. Yes, I think they'd be amenable to that.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do you have any other questions for Mr. Zoki, Mr. Clay, and then Mr. Nipfel?
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. So the revised site plan, does that show your increased soft landscaping, or is that
yes,
that shown? It is on the site plan?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Mr. Nipfel, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The drawing that we had of the laneway suite with the red dotted line, the red dotted line wasn't added by the applicant, right? That was added by the person that was speaking.
Mr. Zoki.
There, that go back one. Yeah.
Mr. Zoki, is that that's done? That's added by the by Ms. McDonald, or is that? Did you have the red lines there?
I did not add that red line.
Okay, and the question was, there's a concern with the laneway and cleanup and so forth, all of which I can understand. And although we don't have jurisdiction, is it possible for Sabrina to indicate which arm of the city the lady might talk to about those issues? Although we haven't got jurisdiction, we could at least point her in the right direction.
If the laneway apparently from the construction, it's got a lot of ruts, it's got water ponding, there's nails being left, so people's tires are getting punctures. So I guess Mr. Nipfel's asking, where can we direct her to call?
Through you, Madam Chair, right-of-way management.
Okay, so Ms. McDonald, you can contact right-of-way management. You can call 311, and they should be able to direct your complaint to the appropriate place if, that's if it can't be worked out throughout the construction with the owner itself. Any other questions, panel members? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Clay?
Sure, I'll start, Chair. This laneway application is almost as of right. So, there's really not a whole lot of substantial variances required to construct the laneway suite, and it seems to conform to the majority of the bylaws, with the exception of the landscaping, which I think we got a pretty good explanation as to how that might be addressed. So I'm comfortable with this application. I do agree with the Ms. McDonald about tying it to plans. I think that's a pretty good idea to ensure that what is built is as what's proposed to us today. I think we might. Again, I'll just leave it at that. If my colleagues have anything to add, I'm happy to move a motion to approve, or otherwise, if anyone wants to add anything. No? So I'll move a motion to approve.
Hold on, Carl, did you have something to add?
I'm sorry, I didn't think you got the conditions. You were just going
Oh,
into
we're
it.
just,
sorry.
no, we haven't done the motion yet. Okay.
Okay.
I'll move approval of this application. I think even though that they've reflected planning's conditions in the revised site plan, I'd like to include those in as well. Forestry condition number 2. I'd like to tie the approval to the plans for the laneway suite. And I think that's it. I don't think we can deal, as we've discussed, necessarily with the concerns about the laneway, but we've given a path forward for the that to be pursued. So I think I'd leave it at that.
Okay, so you're seconding, Mr.
Oh,
Nishful?
sorry, I think it's as amended, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Variance number 2 has been amended to read 71.6%, which equals 97.7 meters squared. And are you seconding, Carl?
Yeah, yes, I am. I was wondering if I might make a friendly suggestion to Larry. Would you, in tying it to plans, there's no sense in tying it to the main building. You've tied it to the laneway suite. Might we also tie it to the site plan, because it's integral to why things are the way they are?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think he did indicate that the revised landscaping is reflected in the site plan as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yep, okay.
To Sabrina, in the planning condition where they state a 1.01 site plan, is that it there? So it's already in the planning condition.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So you've got all the conditions? All right, so with all the conditions outlined by Mr. Clay, the application as amended to approve it, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, 28 to number 30, Langley Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, heritage property detail from the agent, correspondence in support from the adjacent neighbor at 32, correspondence expressing concern from somebody who did not provide an address, Mr. Helfand on behalf of 26 Langley, which is the other side adjacent, 21 Riverdale Avenue, and 45 Langley Avenue. I am showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm showing 6 speakers. Do we have them all?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have 5 of the 6 registered speakers on standby.
Who am I missing then?
We are missing Ms. Sandra Pate of 21 Riverdale Avenue.
Okay, so if I could have the agent.
Addison Milne Price, you've been unmuted.
I'm sorry, I was not muted until just right now. Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Addison Milne Price. I am a planner of Design Plan Services located at 900 the East Mall, Suite 300.
Okay, good morning, sir. You have several opposition speakers here, so if you can do a presentation, no more than 5 minutes, and the clock starts when you start talking.
Thank you. This application proposes to legalize 3 rooms in an existing rooming house to increase the total number of rooms permitted from 21 rooms to 24 rooms. This rooming house is a designated heritage property and has been in existence since 1893. Please note that there are no external renovations proposed as part of this application. Instead, this application seeks to legalize the existing 24 rooms. Before I speak to the variances, please note that no city department or public agency, including planning staff, have indicated any concerns with this application. Now, variance 1 pertains to the parking rate of the rooming house. The parking rate applicable is 1 parking space for every 3 rooms in excess of 3 rooms. And since there are 24 rooms proposed and no dwelling units, 7 parking spaces are required at a minimum. There is currently 1 legally existing parking space at the front of the subject property, and this space is not proposed to be changed or removed. The plans uploaded to the Committee of Adjustment and on screen now indicate 3 existing parking spaces in the rear. However, I would like to confirm that we are proceeding with the variance as identified on the zoning waiver and as listed on the public notice. The intention of this application is to provide 1 parking space at the front of the property. It should also be noted that the provision of any additional parking spaces on the property would either require major renovations to the building or the removal of a significant amount of rear yard green space, neither of which are desirable for the property owners, the residents, or the neighbors. And this is especially clear when one reflects on the fact that many of the letter's concerns are actually concerned with the bylaw mandate of 7 required spaces and not with this proposal to reduce that requirement. The subject property, should be mentioned, is also very well served by regular transit services along Broadview Avenue, and transportation services did not express any concerns or objections to the proposed number of parking spaces. I'd also like to point out that the city has recently amended its bylaws regarding parking rates to better reflect the policies in the official plan. Specifically, most minimum parking rates have been changed to maximum parking rates. The intent of these changes was to reduce auto dependency and encourage a shift towards active transportation, as well as to limit the amount of land occupied by parking spaces. This means that along Langley Ave, 0 parking is permitted for all detached homes, multiplex, and apartments. However, rooming houses were not included in this amendment. I would put to the committee that reducing the required parking on this property would be directly in line with the intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. Now, variance 2 pertains to the total number of rooms used for living accommodation. As I stated earlier, there are 24 rooms currently, and this application seeks to legalize this. The subject property is zoned R for residential, and there's no letter U or number in the zoning label, which means that the number of units is not directly regulated by the zoning bylaw. Also within the R zone, apartments are a permitted building type. This means that provided it complies with all other zoning provisions, 24 dwelling units are currently permitted on the subject property. Since a 24 dwelling unit apartment is permitted on the subject property, I would put to the committee that you should not have much difficulty agreeing a variance to increase the number of rooms from 21 to 24 is already contemplated by the zoning bylaw. While I cannot confirm that a 24 dwelling unit apartment would be technically possible to construct on this property without resulting in further zoning noncompliances, I can confirm that if any zoning noncompliances did occur, they would not be a result of the number of units, but of a zoning provision that related to the form of the building. This rooming house is and will continue to be in keeping with the existing character along Langley Ave and will have little to no impact further than what the bylaw already contemplates, especially considering that the built form on the subject property is permitted as of right, as there are no variances requested related to the built form and massing of the building. This proposal will also provide 3 additional rental dwelling units to add to the much needed housing stock of the city. Based on this provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context for the neighborhood. It's consistent with the redevelopment trends along Langley Ave and the broader neighborhood. And for these reasons, I believe that the application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Milne-Price. Amazing job. We're right at 5 minutes. I'm going to have you back after we hear from all the speakers, okay? Do you have the first one?
Ms. Spire, you've been unmuted.
Oh, good morning. My name is Sherry Spear, and I'm here with my partner, Martin Berzins, 24 Langley Avenue. Obviously, I understand the plans are probably done to architect specification. My only queries are as to what this usage is going to be in terms of you've got 24, you're applying for 24 units that have no kitchen facilities other than one. And so they're basically not apartments. Is this building going to be run as a boarding house, as a student dormitory, as an Airbnb? It's just an inquiry on my part.
Okay, we'll get the agent to speak to this question when he comes back after we hear from all the speakers. Mr. Nipfel has a question for you, though.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question actually is for the person that made the presentation, and I think it might be helpful for anybody else that's going to speak. The purpose of the application suggests that we're here to approve 3 units. There's an existing 3-story detached building, rooming house, and they want approval to go from 21 to 24 units. The submission indicated that in fact there are already 24 units. The variance number 2 indicates that the bylaw requires or limits the units to 6, and what we're being asked for is 24. So there's a discrepancy here. Are we being asked to approve all 24 units, in which case the purpose would perhaps need to be amended? And are all 24 there? Were 21 units ever approved? And I think that's probably germane to anybody's comments.
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that 21 rooms are approved and is a zoning compliant use for this property.
Okay, I guess just further to Mr. Nipfel's comment, do the 24 rooms already exist? So are we here to legalize 24 rooms?
Yes, I will confirm through you, Madam Chair. I visited the site yesterday, and there are 24 rooms as shown on the plans.
So the purpose then, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, should change then, should it not, to legalize?
Through you, Madam Chair, if there wasn't an order to comply, then we won't say to legalize and to maintain. What we can say is to permit the 24 units.
And where were the 21 approved then, Sabrina? I don't understand the approval for 21.
That information I don't have. That's up to the agent to speak to.
Through you, Madam Chair, what I can state is that while it is not uploaded to the AIC, there is a rooming house license for the 24 units that is active and is legitimate.
Okay.
What is this?
Ms. Spear, are you still there? Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I guess you're saying that you already have approval for 24, then why does it say 21 units and you're asking for approval for 24? And my understanding is you're not you don't have units, you're actually taking out communal kitchen. And you're taking units that exist and dividing them in half. So these units will all have bathrooms and no kitchens. And I guess that's my question.
So just in terms of the process, because I can't have like a back and forth. So I'm just, if you could just note that question, Mr. Milne Price, and respond to it after I hear from the rest of the speakers, that would be really appreciated. And just in terms of the 24 rooms, we're here to permit them, but they have a license to run them, which is different from the Committee of Adjustment approvals. So that's the 2 differences with that. All right, so if we can go to the next speaker.
Matthew Helfand, you've been unmuted.
Hear me? Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Matthew Helfand. I am at 181 Bay Street, and I represent the owner of 26 Langley, which is the neighboring property just to the west. I'd like to start out and say that our client has no principal objection to the variances. There's no objection to the increased rooming houses, increased number of rooming units, dwelling units, and there's also no objection to the the one variance for parking. But the principal concern arising from this application is what my client was made aware of and what has now been reiterated by the applicant's agent, which is possible revisions or the plans showing a total of 4 parking spaces on the subject property. In our view, there's only one legal parking space on the property, and any additional parking spots should not be permitted in any form, as it would have to be accessed through this shared driveway, which would be a physical impossibility. So what we're asking for today is 2 things, effectively, that the application here be tied to plans as one condition, and as a second condition, a stipulation that the parking on site shall be limited to the one existing parking space. So I don't see anywhere on these plans where there's 3 legal parking spaces on the back. There's only one existing parking space. And these 2 conditions that will limit parking, we submit are reasonable and are supportive of the 4 tests for reasons similar to what you heard from the applicant. In terms of the official plan, I agree with the applicant that the official plan supports minimizing dependency on private automobiles and that this site is very well served by public transit. In terms of the zoning bylaw, of course, and as the applicant set out, was recently amended to create new provisions removing minimum parking standards. And so the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is better served by one parking space or as few parking spaces as possible. And most importantly, with respect to the test of minor and desirable, the width of the driveway is simply not sufficient to support vehicle access whatsoever. And I would ask if staff could go to my letter, please, and just so you can see a photo to understand the condition between these 2 properties. If you can scroll down right to the bottom, to the attachments, past this shared, right down one more, please, and down one more. Right, this is the shared condition. If you go up one more to the image, this is the driveway. It's simply insufficient to support cars going to the back of the house. The width at the narrowest point between the bay window is about 2.05 meters, which is half of what the zoning bylaw minimum for a drive aisle of 4 meters is. So it's simply impossible to support parking in the back of the property. It would create a significant impact on my client's property. So in short, it's our submission that additional parking should be recognized at the committee stage here as not being possible. And we don't want the applicant or the tenants to try to create parking in this condition that it's simply not physically possible to do. So increasing the number of rooming house units is totally acceptable to my client, who has lived beside this property for many years and enjoys living beside this rooming house. But the applicant must make do with parking that is currently available and legally existing at the front of the property. And so we think that this application being tied to plans and a condition stipulating that parking is limited to the one legal parking space at the front is appropriate in these circumstances and supportive of the 4 tests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just as a side question, have you had any conversations about this with the agent at all?
We have. My client has had conversations with the applicant directly, and as a result of those conversations, she was very concerned that this application would actually be amended to permit to be seeking a variance for 3 or 4 spaces instead of just 1. That amendment didn't happen, but as a result of her concerns, she wants it locked down at this point that there's only one legal parking space here, and that this increase in units, whether it's through an increase of legal non-conforming use or this increase from 21 to 24, we really don't care. I have no interest in. It's just a matter of the parking that is on site is what this house should make do with.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, panel? Mr. Clay?
Sure. Just is your client aware of any time in the past where this has been used as a driveway and cars have tried to park behind this building?
No, historically, it never has been used for parking, which is why she grew quite concerned to have these conversations with the applicant showing the parking space in the back, which we don't think are even legal parking spaces. There's also an easement, a shared easement between the 2 properties here. And historically, we don't think that any modern car has ever been used to park in the back.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Helfand. Do you have Jana Downey?
Hear me?
Hi, if you could just state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Jana Downey. I live at 18 Langley Avenue. And also, I have been a tenant in that building and rented a unit for a family member in need when it was a rooming house. This building has a interesting past, and the former owners, there was 24 units. The former owners tried to evict all of us under the term demolition, which went to the landlord and tenant board, and it was ruled that 21 units were considered a demolition and 3 were considered a renovation, 1 being my unit. In the negotiations with relinquishing my right to first refusal to go back into the building once it was renovated, the 3 of us that had units got settlements from the former owners and to vacate. And in my settlement, I had partial financial settlement and also a lease to rent that 1 parking pad for 5 years. And in my documentations and in my agreement that was drawn up by my solicitor and signed by myself and the former owners, it does have the right, it does say I have the right to continue to park there because the lease is for the land and not with the owner. So it was all our understandings that my lease would carry through. That has not happened. And myself and the new owner are in dispute of being blocked. I did park there for 6 months before he finally blocked me with a metal barrier, so I couldn't continue exercising my right to my lease. So I don't have any problem with the designation of 21 going to 24, but I have concern, since my situation isn't resolved, that if they do get extra spots at the back, it only compounds and muddies the water with what I'm trying to achieve, is getting recognition for my lease and my rights for my lease. That carries on to June 30th, 2025.
Okay, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. That's not a matter that this committee has jurisdiction over. That's a civil matter between you and the existing landlord. And in terms of parking spots, the only variance before us for parking is that 1 space will be provided on site. So we're not approving anything. They're not looking to approve anything beyond 1 spot.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because as the former participant said, it seemed quite vague of what this parking issue is with 1 unit per 3, sorry, 1 spot per 3 units. So I wanted to completely understand what was the variant about.
Yeah, well, that's the requirement under the bylaw. So 1 parking space for every 3 rooms used for living accommodation in excess of 3 rooms, and 1 spot for every 2 dwelling units. That's the actual bylaw. So they're asking to not comply with the bylaw, and they're asking to legalize, to keep 1 space.
Okay, so that's clear for me now. I just wanted to make sure of that. And nothing was going to happen to that 1 spot already that is in dispute. So I'm fine with it going from 21 units to 24 units.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for the speaker, panel members? No? Okay, thanks, Ms. Downey. Do you have Ms. Parsons?
Catherine Parsons, you've been unmuted.
Hi there, it's Catherine Parsons. I live at 26 Langley. I think that Matthew has represented me really well. I do have concerns about future state parking. I've lived on Langley. This is my 2nd home on Langley. I've lived on Langley since 1999. I bought that home in 2003. I have 3 children. I'm a single mom, and having parking in the back, a laneway accessing between the 2 homes as measured on the survey, you'll see that it is 2 meters, 2.04 meters. It would not allow a car to pass through physically, yes, with an 1.25 inch variance on either side of my Kia. And I just I can't, I am a single mom. I cannot afford to go into a civil suit if we can't move forward with ensuring that one of the conditions of this is limiting to 1 parking spot. I can't afford a civil suit to try to get parking if the neighbors try to get parking in future states. So I would really ask you to consider a condition that is tied to plans and that stipulates the parking is limited to 1 spot.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much, Ms. Parsons. And
Thank you.
Our final speaker.
Willa Marcus, you've been unmuted.
I believe, Willa Marcus. My name is Willa Marcus, and I have been the homeowner at 32 Langley, adjacent to the property, for more than 30 years. I just want to give you some, I support the 24 units, and I also want to make a comment about parking, but I'm going to start by about the 24 units. The room, it was a rooming house for many, many decades. Some think that it was actually the initial nurses' residence for the Riverdale Hospital when it was a cholera hospital in the late 19th century. And in 2018, so I lived beside these people in these small units. The area has become increasingly wealthy, but the rooming house remained housed people who were not wealthy. The rents were low. They shared bathrooms. They each had their own little hot stove. And but in 2018, it was bought by a group of real estate agents whose plan was presumably to monetize it. And the first thing they want to do is to evict the tenants. And contrary to what you might think, many people on the street who owned homes there were not pleased by this, because these were our neighbors. And a whole interaction went on for several years, which was not fun for anybody. In the end, the tenants were evicted. It went through the landlord tenant board, or whatever it was called, or is called. And as I understand it, at one point there was, because it was 24 units, as I understand it. And then there was this whole thing about what would make it easier to make it for eviction, blah, blah, blah. And eventually eventually they succeeded in all the evictions, and ended up buying out the 2 or 3 whom they didn't have the right to evict. And then they renovated it, at least superficially, and then they put it up for sale. And the current owners bought it. The current owners have obviously nothing to do with the evictions. They are there perfectly legally, using it as far as perfectly legally. And my understanding is they have students there now, but and that they should have the 24 units. And that was really, as far as I'm concerned, the status quo ante, around which they have been very inconvenienced over the things that, as I understand it, the owners did, the previous owners. So I have I strongly support them being able to do this. My concern is the parking issue on the street is, as you know, the Committee of Adjustments, very, very, very difficult. We're in an area where those who have front yard parking pads have gold, and sometimes they expand them and make them 2 pads, even though they're just 1. And there's a lot of, there's just so much pressure on parking that anything that touches parking is like the 3rd rail. And I advise you not to go near it unless you're quite self-destructive. So whether it's in the back, driveways, curb cuts, I am opposed to any changes aside from basically that they have one legal, who knows how many are being used, but one legal spot at the front yard parking, and that is the way it should be. I also would like the agent to explain where he says they have 3 legal spots in the back. Never heard of that. But so definitely for the 24 units, and just stay away from anything related to parking except to stipulate basically what was suggested by the agent for 26. That seems to me reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marcus. Any questions, panel members, for the speaker? Seeing none. Mr. Milne-Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's quite a bit to respond to, although many of the concerns or submissions centered on a similar theme. So I will go through as best I can. And if there is one aspect of a submission that I did not go through, you can remind me of that. So just to begin, to clarify, this usage will be a rooming house, which it has existed as for several years amongst and ownership changes. That being said, the use is a rooming house, and rooming houses are defined as having either private sanitary facilities or private kitchen facilities, not both. Typically, there is one shared kitchen facility in most rooming houses. As a result, these units are typically cheaper than normal dwelling units. However, they are a perfectly legal and acceptable way of constructing a room. Regarding the parking, 7 parking spaces are required by the bylaw on this property. Our application is proposing to reduce this requirement to 1 parking space at the front. And this parking space is the one and only legally existing parking space that's currently on the property. Regarding the submissions I made speaking to the parking spaces in the rear, I was only attempting to speak to the plan, which does mention 3 existing parking spaces, but I can confirm based on my site visit that the 3 spaces indicated at the rear of the site on the plan do not exist, and there is in fact 1 parking space which is consistent with the variance that has been requested. Now, regarding the discrepancy between 6 rooms and 21 rooms, I do not have anything that proves definitively 21 living rooms are permitted on this subject property. However, I'll note that the zoning notice did mention the maximum amount of rooms is 6, and that we are requesting for 24 rooms, and that this is consistent with the public notice, and it's consistent with the variances that we are requesting today. So I do not believe that there are any issues of notice. Anyone who would like to have been notified of this application, I believe, would have been notified of it. The purpose of the application does mention the 21 living rooms that currently exist. I can confirm that there are 24 rooms that are currently existing right now. This is the purpose of this application, is to permit those rooms that are currently constructed. To give some context to the statements that have been already given by the previous speakers, when the property changed hands to the current owners were not aware that 24 units were not permitted, although 24 units were clearly part of the closing deal. This application is a result of the owner attempting to permit what is existing on the subject property. I believe that covers all of the submissions. However, if I'm happy to answer any other questions.
My only question is, so the conditions that Mr. Helfand gave us, you would be amenable to those, is that correct? So tying it to plans and that it's limited to one parking spot on site?
I would be amenable to those. I would point out that I'm not sure there's any reason, but if it does make the other neighbors more comfortable, I see no reason to not be amenable to that condition.
Okay, I think listening to the submissions, I think it would give them a greater comfort level. Panel members, do you have any questions? Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Milne-Price, two questions. In your rebuttal remarks, you mentioned the 3 parking spaces in the rear yard that are shown on the plan. What plan is that? Because I don't have a plan that shows that, or I've missed it if it's in the package. And the reason I'm asking the question is, I think the condition about tying it to plans where the limit is 1 parking space as shown on the site plan makes sense. But the site plan, as far as I can see, doesn't have parking spaces in the rear yard. Have I missed something?
Through you, Madam Chair, the parking spaces that I was speaking to may not be on this plan. This plan should reflect the variances that are being sought and the ultimate configuration of the lot. However, as per the letters of concern that reference plans that did previously show existing parking spaces, I wanted to include confirmation that 1 space is the only space we are requesting.
Okay, but all I want to clarify is we don't have any drawings that show 3 parking spaces in the back, and it sounds as though that's correct, and I just wanted to confirm that. The second thing has to do with the purpose of the application, and I'm sorry to belabor this, but I don't want us to make a mistake here. I don't have any difficulty with the 24 units that are being requested, but I don't understand, you in your closing remarks again said, and then there's the 21 existing units, and in the next sentence you said, and then there's the 24 existing units. There are 24 units. There's no difference between the 21 and the 24. Is that correct? There's 24 units there currently.
There are 24 units existing. I believe there was previously permission for 21. However,
okay, but we can't. You said you don't have proof of that, and our Deputy Secretary Treasurer didn't know where the 21 had come from. And the only reason I'm asking that is it seems to me the purpose of the application is different. The application doesn't seem to, the purpose doesn't seem to have to reference the 21 units because no one knows whether they were approved or not. And it doesn't appear that they went from, that this application is going to cause 21 units to become 24 units. So I just want to clarify that. I think I'm clear now. In my remarks when we go into committee, though, I'm going to suggest that the purpose of the application perhaps needs to change.
Sabrina, I guess, again, can the purpose be changed to just simply read to permit 24 units and leave the 21 out, to Mr. Nipfel's point?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. To permit a total, you can say to permit a total of 24 units within the existing 3-story detached building, rooming house, period.
Does that help, Mr. Nipfel?
Yeah, I think that's a lot clearer. Thanks very much.
Okay. Any other questions, panel members? Okay, let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the submissions that were made by the residents were very helpful. And my compliments as well to Mr. Milne-Price. Again, a good presentation. I don't personally have any difficulty with this application. It sounds as though it's been in existence and working in a complementary fashion with the community for some time. The big issue appears to be parking, and I understand that. And I understand, thanks to the submissions from the neighbors, the concern with putting parking in the rear yard. The access would appear to be difficult, if not impossible. So all things considered, I'd like to move approval of the application. I don't believe there are any conditions from committees or other agencies. And our condition, I would suggest, is that the parking be limited to 1 space as shown on the site plan drawing that we have before us today. And I believe that's it.
Okay, Sabrina, should we separate it, that we tie it to the site plan, and then a second condition limiting it to 1 parking spot on the site?
Through you, Madam Chair, variance number 1 reads, in this case,
I
1
know.
parking space will be provided on site, so you may just want to tie it to the site plan.
I think we're just trying to give comfort levels to the neighbors, and like it
It's in
doesn't
the
harm it in
variance,
adding
right?
it. I know the variance is there.
Yeah.
I think we're just seeking to not have them turn around and come back like next month, so
Okay, sure, so then it can be separated into 2 conditions.
Okay, is that okay, Carl, then? So tying it to
Yeah,
the site plan?
and that's great. And my motion also is on the assumption that we've adjusted the purpose as suggested earlier by Sabrina.
All right, so that motion then is moved, so tying it to the site plan, limiting it to 1 parking spot on the site, and to change the purpose basically as outlined by Sabrina by removing number 21. Moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Chang. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, thanks everybody. Item number 6, 4 Pine Crest Terrace. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Presentation materials from the agent. Correspondence in support from number 12. Number 2, which is adjacent, Pine Crescent. Number 18, Pine Terrace, and 109 Beach Avenue, and 135 Beach Avenue.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I'm just going to ask the presenter to post the planning staff report that was submitted. It's in the very late materials.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hold on, please.
So we don't, I don't recall.
Yeah, so it's on
seeing
the
that.
screen right now. So community planning is recommending refusal.
For this application?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I only show the agent as a speaker, so do I have the agent on the line?
Yes, you do. I'm Matthew Sergi at 4 Pine Terrace. I'm the owner.
Hi, were you aware of planning's report recommending?
Yes, I.
Okay, did you?
Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
Sorry, this is my first time at the rodeo. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I was, and I can speak to that.
Okay, did you want to proceed with the application, or did you, we're seeing this for the first time, and or did you want us to look at a deferral because you want to have conversations with planning?
Madam Chair, I've tried to speak to planning about it, and I'd like to proceed with the application because I think you'll see that the situation is actually somewhat straightforward.
Okay, sir, so go ahead.
Chair, before we go,
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
you'll forgive me. I'm trying to read that, and I can't.
I'm having the
wondering
same
if someone
problem.
someone could just give us a little précis of what the staff's concern with
Yeah,
this
whoa, stop.
application is.
Can we go to the summary? The
Well,
end?
actually, the comments,
Or
I'm
the
the
comment-
same
the
with
comment,
Larry.
yeah.
The comments, can we make that larger?
Yeah.
That's terrific. Thanks.
Okay, so it's a GFA for the 3rd floor. The report says that you're asking for deferral, but you'd rather proceed with the application, right, Mr. Sergi?
Yes, Madam Chair, since this is my first time at all of this, I misunderstood whom I was speaking to when community planning called. I think I better understand the situation now, and I think it's best to proceed with the application.
Okay. All right. Panel members, have you had a chance to read the planning's rationale? Okay, so you have 5 minutes, sir, then to tell us why we should approve it rather than refuse it as per planning's concerns.
Before I begin, Madam Chair, I submitted some slides. I was told that they would accompany my presentation, but I'm not seeing them here. And I'm not quite sure
Well,
how to
I don't
access
know. We
them.
have to find them. So when did you send them in? Because I'm only showing support letters in my package here.
There they are.
That's
They're right there.
Supplementary. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm not sure how this works, but I'm referring to item 1 here, and I thank you, Madam Chair and honorable committee members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm Matthew Sergi. Please know that I have submitted this application entirely as a layman. I apologize in advance for any terminology or concepts I get wrong. At item 1, Pine Terrace is a row of small freehold townhouses. It's nestled uniquely into the middle of a city block in the Beaches, into which the only access by car is provided through an unnamed laneway off of Cedar Avenue. A public walkway cuts through the south half of our lots to a steep city-owned stairway that leads up onto the Beach Avenue sidewalk. I know of no other group of structures in the Beaches quite like ours, but there are multiple relevant precedents right on Pine Terrace regarding scale, density, and the existing character of the neighborhood. If we can move forward to item 2. My wife and I bought number 4 Pine for a family of 3 in 2018. We renovated but made no additions to the 2.5-story building as it stood. When we had our second daughter, we put her nursery in the 0.5 level, the loft overlooking our master bedroom. We knew that we would soon have to expand to provide her with a place to sleep. This loft area she has already grown out of. You can see I've had to install barriers last year around the edges of the loft railing to keep her from climbing over them and falling. The solution that we and our contractor and our realtor came up with and hired an architect 2 years ago to design is at item 3. If we can move to item 3. Item 3, we propose simply to remove the railing, extend the loft floor by 9.61 square meters across to the opposite wall, and then enclose the 2 resulting spaces with new internal walls. We'd make the lower room then the younger daughter's bedroom, and the top room the master bedroom for us, and we'd have to open out a dormer in the south side of the roof so we can walk about freely inside as grown-ups, but it would add no elevation to the dwelling overall. At item 4, are the concerns that were raised by Toronto Building and echoed by community planning. They have flagged this, and I think they were a bit spooked by the fact that our FSI, after this addition of 9.61 square meters, our FSI would be 132.31 square meters. That's a difference over the permitted maximum FSI of 71.757 square meters. And that steep difference is why community planning has flagged our proposal as overdevelopment. But if we turn to item 5, our proposed change is only to add 9.61 square meters. Mathematically, that is not what is putting us over the top. The existing conditions at 4 Pine Terrace must already have been twice the maximum FSI. Indeed, ours is visibly the second smallest townhouse on Pine Terrace, though most of the lots are of identical or smaller size. Our neighbors' townhouses, all built from the same 100-year-old structure, have far larger expansions upon that original structure. If you see in the picture, at 10 and 12, the first and second floor walls extend nearly all the way to that south walkway, which we do not have on our dwelling. 14 Pine Terrace has a similar second floor extension that forms a covered deck, while 16 and 6 Pine Terrace have ample covered porches. You see at number 6, it's quite permanent. Some of our neighbors have lived here for over 35 years, and they tell us that all of these extensions have been here for decades. I've spoken to community planning. They say they only consult precedents as far back as 2010, but multiple precedents are plainly visibly here at Pine Terrace. May I ask the committee, the variance for elevation, is that something I should speak to as well?
I think you should speak to anything that you
All right. Okay.
want to
Thank
bring
you.
to our attention, so go ahead.
Thank you. So moving to item 6, regarding elevation, we're proposing to add a dormer, and we understand that increases our external wall, but we got this idea from our neighbors. As you see from the pictures, there's already an existing south dormer at 6 Pine at an identical lot size. There's a smaller one at 18 Pine. Both dormers are, we believe, accessible from the floors. You can see that there is a balcony you can step out to from 6 Pine, which obviously means the floor extends all the way to them, which is another indicator of the FSI of neighboring dwellings. They must all be over this FSI by about twice. As for number 10 Pine, which you see sticking up there, number 10 Pine is on a lot whose area is identical to ours, and it has not a dormer but a full added story, which extends meters above the other roofs on the north and south. 10 Pine has those length extensions as well on its lower floors as floor 1 and floor 2. It thus visibly exceeds our proposed project in floor space and height by a wide margin. It has done so for decades, but it fits just fine here among a warm community of neighbors. Our neighbor Gail Rouse at 6 Pine Terrace has told me she's completely fine with the proposed distance between our dormers. She does not have email. She says she called in and left a message. Moving to item 7, I just want to show how many how many of our neighbors have expressed support of the project. They don't all have email. Gail at Six Pines said she did call in and left a message. Madam Chair, please consider supporting this variance for my family to add a needed bedroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Panel members, do you have any questions? Mr. Clay?
Sure. Thank you. That was a great presentation. Really appreciate it. It's very helpful clarifying your circumstance. You're only proposing to add less than 10 square meters to your existing home. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, sir. My designer, there's a slight discrepancy between the amount that the designer had for the area. I think he calculated 9.8 square meters. I calculated 9.61 when I looked at his plans. I'm new to this, but I say with confidence, if you look at the picture, it's really just, to extend the floor out to the existing wall that's already there. And that's 9.61 square meters.
So based on your calculations, you're proposing to go to 132 square meters. So you're currently at about 120 square meters, which frankly is about you're already double the existing FSI, as are, I suspect, as you point out, most of your neighbors, if not all.
Yes, sir, that is indeed the case. And I do want to say I'm not quite sure how these things work, but the neighborhood does not feel cramped. The neighborhood feels warm and loving, and everybody seems happy there. The size of the buildings seem to correctly fit the lots, and indeed the buildings have been there for quite a long time. So I'm not sure why the max FSI is so inconsistent with the actual lived situation, but it does seem to be true cause for a variance here.
Yeah, it's likely that you're caught up in the bylaw requirements for the surrounding neighborhood, which are on very different lots and very different housing stock than you're in.
Yes, sir, I believe that is absolutely so. As I said in my presentation, Pine Terrace is a sort of sui generis place. It's very unique. And so I suspect that the reason that community planning flagged it is because it did not understand the specificity of this particular set of units.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Cheng?
And I just want to confirm that basically the so-called floor area is already there. You're just increasing the height of the roof with this dormer, and this area becomes part of the FSI.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Cheng. If we can go up to item, I believe it's item 3. That's not exactly the case. We are extending the floor by that 9.61 square meters because we have a loft, and we're trying to extend that loft only to the opposite wall. So it is an addition of floor, but it is a very minor addition of floor, and it is certainly not what is putting us at the level of FSI that made it flagged by community planning.
Understood. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Nipfel?
And just to clarify, by the way, you keep apologizing for not knowing the system. You've made one of the better presentations I've ever heard, so you don't need to apologize. The materials that you've provided, I've got them on another computer. Can we go further down the list of the drawings on the presentation that's on the screen for everyone to see? Currently, we've got mom and dad sleep here on. Can we go down further? Okay, a bit more. Bit more. Bit more. This one. Basically, the only thing that will be visible from the outside that's going to change is that the dormer similar to the one at 10 Pine is going to go on the roof of this building, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Nipfel. And thank you for the compliment to my presentation. If I could tell you how much trouble it's been to go through this process as a layman, well, it's a long story, but I've done my best. The dormer, there is not a dormer at 10 Pine, rather 10 Pine is a full story. And so what we would be doing would be smaller overall from 10 Pine. What you can see from this picture is only the front of 10 Pine. You can see from the back how far that story sticks up. What
Okay,
we're
so
doing
yours is more like number 6, but wider.
Yes, sir. It's going to be wider than 6, but about the same. The only difference in an outward appearance would be that 6 has left room in its dormer for a small balcony for the person to step out on, while ours will not have that because that has turned out to be a raccoon invitation. And so we are trying to not do that in ours. But otherwise, it's the same. Actually, if you scroll up to item, I believe, 6, You can see an example here. Down one to item 6. I've just used my poor photoshopping skills to try to draw on what I think it would look like. That's actually, I think, a bit bigger than what the designer had, but I only have limited skills. But as you can see, the appearance of the dormer from the outside would be well within what it looks like from the south end of the buildings, and from the north end, it would be not visible at all.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions, panel members? Seeing none, let's take it into committee for a decision then. Mr. Clay.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. First of all, again, as we said, that was an excellent presentation. The graphics and the photos were extremely helpful. I do think that this little enclave is caught up in a bylaw framework which is designed to fit more with the surrounding beaches area. So I don't think it necessarily reflects the unique considerations of the lots and the built form along this strip. So I wouldn't want to put words in planning's mouth, but I do think that maybe they just saw the absolute increase in FSI and thought that that was excessive. I am entirely convinced by the presentation. I thought it was very helpful. I think that based on that presentation and what we have in front of us, the proposal is actually quite modest and quite reasonable given the circumstances. And I don't really, and the fact that they've sought and received support from surrounding neighbors, I don't see any real reason to deny this application. I think it's a supportable application, and I'd like to move approval with no conditions.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Mr. Nipfel? So all in favor? Okay, your application's been approved unanimously. Item number 7, 284 Kennedy Avenue. And we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. And I only have the agent as a speaker. Do we have the agent on the line? And we have 2 variances before us, panel members.
Jay Barmy, you have been
Madam Chair.
muted.
Hi.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of committee. Jay Barmy, JS Barmy Architects, 2586A Yonge Street, Toronto, M4P2J3.
Alrighty, I don't think we need a presentation. Any questions on this one, panel members? Okay, sir, I'm not seeing any questions. We're ready to take it into committee. Anything you want to add before we go into committee and make a decision?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, panel, we're in committee. Anybody? Mr. Clay?
Sure. I have no problems with this application either. I think the variances are quite minor. There is no concern from surrounding neighbors. There's only 2 very small variances before us. I think it's a reasonable application and will not affect the surrounding neighborhood at all. So I'm happy to support, and my colleagues don't have anything to add or concerns. I'm happy to move a motion to approve.
Okay, are you seconding Mr. Nipfel, or did you want to add
Could I ask
something?
Larry a question? Would you be open to a friendly amendment to tie the size of the balcony on the 3rd floor to the plan, which is A103? And my only reason is, when you walk out, if I'm understanding the plans correctly, there's a very large roof that could be the balcony. The proposal is to limit the balcony, and I think that addresses privacy issues on either side. But if that whole roof was to go to balcony, I think it would be a different issue. So I think tying it to the to drawing A103 would make sense.
Sure. I don't have any.
See how the balcony is smaller than the roof? It's differentiated as a smaller portion.
Yes.
And it pulls it in from the sides, which I think is a good idea.
Yes. Okay, sure. Happy. That's fine.
Okay, I'd second that with that, Madam Chair.
Okay, so motion to approve, including a condition to tie it to A103. Moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Okay, your application's been approved. Item number 8, 3 Hanson Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. And forestry asking for condition number 3. And we have correspondence in opposition from number 1 Hanson, which is adjacent. And also on behalf of that same resident, we have correspondence from the solicitor, Michael Cara. Okay, do you have both speakers? Okay, can I have the agent first then?
Thomas Gorel, you've been unmuted.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Thomas Gorel. I'm the agent for the owner at 3 Hanson Road.
Okay, sir, I have one opposition speaker, so can you do a presentation, please? No more than 5 minutes.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, could we clarify, just in case there's a misunderstanding, this is 3 Hanson. Our agenda indicates it's 8 Hanson. We are at 3 Hanson, right?
Yep.
Correct, yes.
It's number 3 Hanson, and it's item number 8. So yeah, just the notice says number 8 on it. So that's fine, we'll fix that. Okay, go ahead, sir. The clock starts now.
Yes, thank you. So we're proposing to build a 3-story home that is 2,360 square feet. We have a few variances, or 10 of them. Some of them I think are just a domino effect of the way the lot is positioned. It is a narrow lot. It isn't a wide lot. So number 1, 2, and 3 have to do with steps entering and exiting the house in the back. Because there are setbacks, we have those stairs there, which are at the front door, and at the back we just, for aesthetic purposes, we made the stair the whole width rather than just making it a portion because we have a slider there. So numbers 1, 2, and 3 are the byproduct of the entrances. Number 4, sorry, and 4 is including that. Number 5 and number 6 have to do with the height of the building. We have a 3-story flat roof, and because it's a flat roof, the variance bylaw changes from 11 meters, because if it's a pitched roof, you're allowed 11 meters, and goes to 8.5. So the 8.5 is only because we have a flat roof. You are allowed to do 3 stories in the area. We're at 10, so we're still lower than the 11 meters that's allowed. But the main reason for it is because once you do a flat roof, it drops dramatically, 3.5 meters. However, in the front, we did introduce a dormer to try and fit the character of the neighborhood. There are many 3 stories on the street in the neighborhood. Some are flat roof. There is a 1-story modern house flat roof, but there's also 2 stories with attic spaces. Then there's also 3 stories with a roof. So I think the main reason for these 2 points are just because we decided to do a flat roof as opposed to a pitch roof. Our reasoning for a flat roof too is because of the lot, because it's so narrow, we figured if we can do a flat roof and contain any water or snow buildup, rather than spilling onto the roofs, maybe the gutters getting clogged and spilling on the sides and then having problems with the neighbor, we want to contain it on the flat roof, slope it to scuppers, and then from there direct it to the front of the property. Number 7 has to do with the length of the building. The length of the building is not so much the length of the building, but it's your front yard setback plus the length of the building. And in this area, we're allowed 19 meters. We're at 19.07. We're over by 3 inches. 3 inches isn't too much. We could have adjusted that, but this has been such a long process to revise the drawings for 3 inches, go and get the revised drawings to bring back to committee. We just felt we were losing a lot of time, so we didn't do that. If need be, we can always remove that 3 inches. It's really not a big issue. We just didn't want to lose time. Number 8 is the size of the dwelling. Again, because the lot is so narrow, it's a numbers game. We are only proposing a modest house of 2,360 square feet. It's not a large home. It's a 3-bedroom home. We don't feel that it's large, but because like I said earlier, because it's a number game, the lot is narrow. That's why it seems higher than it really is in the area, because the houses in that area some are even larger than this. Point number 9 is the setback. The setbacks in this property are 1.2 meters. I feel that planning should maybe review that, because I know it scares neighbors when they see 1.2. That is 4 feet, but all the houses in the area are probably only 1 foot setback because it is a close-knit neighborhood. Even the neighbors are almost a foot close to the property line. It's just, it's all the houses in the area are very tight. You can even see here. It's just that they have 1.2. If we were to comply with that, with this very narrow lot, we would only be able to have an interior space of 9 feet wide. So, I mean, I would like to see maybe planning when they look at that for this area, because I know the rules are different areas, that they review it based on areas and conversations. And finally, number 10 is the front yard setback, the front yard landscaping. Just based on putting the driveway in and putting the landscaping in, we were short by just under 2%. We felt that there's still a lot of greenery, so we just decided to go forward with this variance.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the opposition, and then we'll have you back for questions.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen Kloos, you've been unmuted.
Hello, yes?
Hi.
Can everyone?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you state your name and address for the record? Once you've done that, we'll start the clock and you have 5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Stephen Kluss, the owner and resident at 1 Hanson Road on the east side of this property.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, good morning to you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. If I could, as I might make some reference to the one letter of objection that was written by my lawyer. To start, again, I've anticipated some sort of development on this property for the last few years, and the only thing I would like to note is that I was not contacted prior to the application being submitted, which precluded the ability to have meaningful discussions with the applicant about my various concerns. Reason being, they took over ownership of this property last spring, and immediately a tenant was installed, so there's no correspondence there. The applicant's desire to use the existing foundation for the new construction does not justify the neglect for the bylaw standards or the impact that the new building would have on adjacent properties. The so-called existing foundation that they refer to merely represents, in fact, only 30% of the current structure. The basement foundation of the existing house currently is only a bit more than 6 feet high, and the applicant proposes to dig a further 50% deeper than that for the new structure. And thus, as noted in item number 8 in the zoning notice, the building must adhere to the bylaws regarding setbacks and density. Although the existing building extends further into the rear yard than my property currently does, it does so at a 1-story height, which is a very different impact on the proposed 3-story extension. The applicant is already getting the benefit of added vertical density. Therefore, the setback should be no less than 1.2 meters from my property line. There are various ways in which new development can be designed to respect and reinforce prevailing built form conditions, including incorporating step backs and by reducing the height or width of a new building as to the building extends further into the rear portion of the lot. Even so, you know, with the 4 feet distance between the properties, general access to the rear space of the property is severely restricted for them trying to move it merely 2 feet away. How would they get, you know, their garbage bins to the back of their property and lawnmowers or whatever? Instead of proposing a new building that hugs each of the property lines, the architectural plan should be revised to decrease the amount of density on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the new structure. As per, actually it was the other letter of objection, there's a diagram on page 2 of the other letter of objection. Sorry, that's not my property. Yes, page 2, you can see some references to the back and the side of the property. My privacy is compromised as the applicant has not incorporated any design features or mitigation measures. For example, the rear walkout balcony on the 3rd story of the new building, as well as the windows extending from sidewall to sidewall, which would peer down into my rear yard. Referring to the diagram on page 1, just previous, if the applicant were to shift the entire building massing to the north towards Hanson Road, so that the front of the new building aligns with the front of the neighboring houses, as you can see, it's a very unusual property. This would significantly reduce the impact that the redevelopment would have on my use and enjoyment of my property. The new construction, again, as I was saying, must remain a minimum of 1.2 meters from my property line, as it also potentially jeopardizes the stability and integrity of my stone foundation, as most of you would know. These are houses in the range of 100 years old. And I would require some sort of warranty that the applicant assumes liability and responsibility to safeguard any potential damage to my structure. So for the reasons outlined above, I respectfully request that the Committee of Adjustment defer the application to allow for discussions between the applicant and myself regarding revisions. Should the applicant not be willing to defer this matter, the application should be refused on the basis that the tests set out under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act have not been met. In conclusion, I would also like to emphasize that due to the recent legislative changes to the Planning Act, next door neighbors such as myself do not have the right to appeal approvals to the T-Lab. Given the concerns raised, I would ask if the committee would either defer or refuse the application so that there can be an opportunity for discussion between myself and the applicant. I would also emphasize that if the committee does not make this decision, I have no rights to appeal under the new legislation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker, Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The existing foundation, is it 1.2 meters from your property line currently, or is it more or less?
Well, it's like the existing structure is roughly, I think, 50 feet from front to back. The original part of this structure, which is a strange, it claims it's 1.5 story, but it's more like an attic that was maybe converted into a loft. It only goes back about 15 or 17 feet. That foundation is, I think, the 2 feet from the property line currently, but the rest of this structure, which was probably an addition built onto it, is currently 6 feet from my property line. And just logically looking at it, I mean, how would people access their rear yard on a width of only 2 feet? I don't know if people's shoulders are almost as wide as that.
But that, just to clarify, if we could get the site plan on the screen, the section where it says concrete walkway on the site plan,
yeah,
that currently exists. So you're concerned about people being able to get to the rear yard. That
it's not. That's just a cosmetic thing, I guess. But
no, I'm trying to understand your concern with the side yard setback. The side yard setback that you're concerned. I can understand that the building as proposed goes back a lot further than previously, and that the building is set back further as you extend further into the site. But in terms of the section of the building that is adjacent to your building, the 1.2 meters, which is something you have a concern of, that currently exists. Is that not right?
No, it doesn't. But because this is as per item 8 in the zoning bylaw notice, that this is being deemed by the city as a brand new structure. They're not really retaining, although they claim they're retaining the foundation of this small 30% section of this entire existing building. The foundation, I mean, they're going to underpin, or they're going to dig underneath it anyway.
That's not the issue. The only issue I'm trying to determine is the amount of space that currently exists between your property line, I guess it's your north property line, and the building that's currently on the site. And is it currently 1.2 meters, or is it the
first 30% of this building, whatever the first 17 feet is, 2.3 feet from my property line.
Yeah.
And then
okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Gerard.
Yes, thank you. So what we're doing here is we're building. We kept the original house, the front portion, in its location, and the reason for that is because there are many duplexes and triplexes in the area, and not everyone has a garage. Some people have a garage in the back, but some people have a garage in the front. What we wanted to do, we wanted to be able to park 2 cars on the property and not create more parking on the street, and that's really the reason why the house, we left the same position and we didn't move it forward. It was strictly for parking, and parking is always an issue in the city of Toronto, so we tried to do that. In regards to length, as I had mentioned, if the committee were to vote in our favor, we're more than willing to reduce it by the 3 inches to not have the length setback. What we're doing here also is, because it's such a narrow lot, we're just following the line of the existing footprint, which is 0.065 meters. We're not stepping it back, we're just carrying it through. That separation between the property line and our home is still larger than the gentleman at number 1, as his separation from the property line to the house is 0.41. So we feel that it wouldn't be fair that we feel that it's unfair of a comment like that we can't have the setback, but he can. But I'm not going to get into that. The reason for us not doing a setback is because it's a tight lot. We wanted to just carry that existing line straight through. And if we had set it back to 1.2, the inside room in the back, the whole area, would be 9 feet. And 9 feet, even for a designing purpose, to have like a bedroom or a kitchen to a living room, it just makes the house not pleasant. And for that reason, that is why we just took the existing house and we went straight through. In regards to the comment on the backyard, the deck, the balcony, you can call it, on the 3rd floor, we have no problem putting 6-foot privacy screens on both ends. We didn't propose it, but we're more than happy to put them in. It's not an issue at all. And I'd also like to comment that we did go back and forth with planning, and planning had no comments. They did support our proposal. They didn't do it in writing, but I spoke to the planner. They had their powwows with the entire team, and we did get positive feedback. So we feel that we want to build a nicer home, because as the gentleman mentioned, the houses are older. So as they become older, you want to build something new that can sit there for a while. And if he's concerned about his house and his foundation, we will be hiring professionals with insurance and liability, which he can meet and discuss. That's not a problem. And also, we won't be digging into his property. So the new part, they'll be shoring in place. So we won't be disturbing him and his lifestyle during the construction.
Did I hear you say you're willing to remove variance number 7, which is the depth variance for 19.07 meters?
Yeah, absolutely. If that helps, it's 3 inches.
It's up to you. I mean, if you want to remove it, then it's up to
I mean,
you.
if it would make the homeowner happier, or if it would make more of a favorable decision by the committee members, we're more than willing. I mean, we want how it is. We like the design. We feel that we designed it perfectly and everything flows the way we want it, but we're willing to give that up if it helps in a positive decision, right?
Well, I can't tell you that. I mean, I am just asking if you want to remove it or not.
I'd rather not.
Okay. All right, any questions, panel members? Okay, let's take it into committee then. Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. I find myself a little conflicted on this application. And the reason being, I totally appreciate that the applicant is planning to build on the existing footprint. But I think the adjacent neighbors have a legitimate point about going up 3 stories on that footprint and the impact that three-story depth has on the adjacent properties. It just seems to me that you know, the applicant could achieve the exact same outcome if they were prepared to bring the house forward to align with the other houses on the lot or on the street. And you know, the house as proposed wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it wouldn't go as deep as currently proposed. I find myself questioning whether this is a reasonable application, given that the three-story impact on the rear on the neighbors is quite significant, and that could in fact be mitigated by a slightly different design that would bring that house forward. Now, I'm interested in my colleagues' views, but I would wonder if maybe a deferral to allow that process to proceed might be in the best interest of everyone. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mr. Nipfel, I saw your hand go up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree with you, Larry. I think that the implications of the additional height, given that much of the building is pushed into a position where it's parallel to the backyards of the adjacent neighbors, it's difficult to accept. I have another concern, and that is, and there's nothing about a front yard setback to assist with this concern, but basically this is a proposal to put a parking lot on the street. You heard the applicant say he wants to put 2 cars in the front, and that's in a space where adjacent neighbors have their houses pulled up to quite close to the street line with verandas. I find the placement of this building to be really, well, I find it objectionable. It's clearly out of character with what the predominant footprint is on the area. So I'm similar to my colleague. I'm having real trouble with this application. I'm unable to support it in its current state, and I'd be open to a deferral, or other than that, I would be inclined to vote for a rejection of the application.
Okay, any other comments?
Maybe we can ask the applicant if he is open for deferral.
Sure, Mr. Milne, I'm sorry, Mr. Gerard?
Yes, thank you.
Are you open to deferral?
Absolutely, yes, of course.
Okay, all right, let's
Well,
take.
just to be clear, Chair, if I might, a deferral with the express purposes to address the concerns that we have raised here today.
And if I can add to that, and also to talk to your neighbor, because I always think it's unfortunate when, you know, agents and applicants are before us and they've never spoken to the adjacent neighbors at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, Chair, I'm happy to move deferral for the purposes for which we've spoken, to consider whether an alternative design might be more appropriate, and to address the concerns that both Carl and I have raised. And your point about having discussions with adjacent neighbors.
All righty. Did you want a second, Carl?
Certainly.
Okay, so that motion is moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Item number 9, 70 Caledonia Park Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent. We have an arborist report and tree protection plan. We have presentation materials from the agent. We have email correspondence from transportation. They don't have any concerns. Forestry's asking for condition number 3. And we have just the one speaker listed here.
David Huynh, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Huynh from Bellsfields Incorporated, 3 Church Street, Suite 200 in Toronto.
Okay, good morning. I don't think we need a presentation. Any questions, panel members? Seeing Mr. Clay?
Just a quick one. I was unclear. What's the current designation? These are employment lands, right? Currently? Or is it residential?
That's
Because
correct.
residential right to the north and employment to the south. This is actually employment lands?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, good, thanks.
Any other questions, panel members? All right, sir, we're ready to make a decision on this. We've read all the materials, including your presentation materials. Anything you want to add before we take it into committee?
Madam Chair, only thing is just to reiterate that, we've been working extensively with planning staff, both in the pre-application stage and through the site plan approval process, and have done numerous revisions to it to address staff's concerns, whether it relates to the relationship or transition to the townhouse development to the north, as well as the park to the east. So planning staff are very comfortable with the application as it stands before you today, and are looking for your decision, so that in that if it is approved, and we do recommend approval based on what I've submitted to you before, that we can then wrap up the site plan approval process. And so that's all I really wanted to reiterate, is that we've been working extensively with staff, and as you can see, staff have not indicated any objection to the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Nifel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the work between the applicant and planning staff is really evident here. This is a very good application, and I fully support it. I'm particularly impressed with the rather sophisticated way in which it's addressing the transition between this use and the residential uses, both by stepping the building back and by setbacks and so forth. I think it's a commendable application, and I have no difficulty in bringing forward a motion of approval subject to forestry condition number 3. And I'd be interested to know if my colleagues share my views.
I see thumbs up, but I still need a seconder. So, okay, I'll go with Aaron. All right, so motion to approve, moved by Mr. Nifel, seconded by Mr. Chang, including forestry number 3. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, let's do item number 10, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, okay? Item number 10 is 229 Hillsdale Avenue East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from transportation, and they're asking for a condition regarding the curb cut and to restore the grass. We have a 10-signature petition in support from residents on Hillsdale Avenue. I only have the agent as a speaker.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and fellow committee members. Addison Mullen-Price of Design Plan Services at 900 The East Wall, Suite 300.
Welcome back. I don't think we need a presentation. Any questions, panel members? Mr. Nifel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Price, would you have any difficulty with screening the ground floor deck on the east and the west side? And my reason for that suggestion is that the deck is substantially higher than grade and does pose an overlook problem.
I would point out through you, Madam Chair, that there are no variances directly related to the deck. However, given that there is a variance for the maximum permitted building depth, I understand that condition and would be and accept that it could mitigate privacy impacts related to variance 4.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, panel members? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Mr. Milne-Price, anything you want to add before we take this into committee?
I'd just like to confirm that I have no issues with the condition recommended by staff to ensure that the existing curb cut be replaced.
Okay, great. Thank you for confirming that. All right, we're in committee, panel members. So I need Mr. Nifel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have any difficulty with this application. I'd like to, subject to the screening of the ground floor deck, which, as I indicated, is substantially higher than the rear yard and the amenity space of adjacent neighbors. Subject to screening that deck with impermeable screening, 1.6 meters high on the east and west. Yes, on the east and west sides, and the transportation condition, which is dealing with the existing driveway. I'd like to move approval of the application. Approval, yeah.
So I have a motion to approve the application, including the 2 conditions outlined by Mr. Nipfel. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Chang, so all in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, we'll be back at 11:50, so 10 to 12, and we'll be starting number 11.
Oh, sweetheart. Oh, dear. Okay. Oh, my heavens, honey.
I didn't want to make this comment, but
11. Okay, we're back with item 11, 91 McRoberts Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevation. We have an arborist report and tree protection plan prepared by Davy Resource Group. We have a staff report from forestry asking for condition number 1 and correspondence in opposition from the adjacent property at number 93. And I'm only showing the agent as a speaker. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Marco Vieira. I'm the agent and the designer for this application. I'm at 257 Dunraven Drive.
Okay, good morning, panel members. Do you need a presentation? No? Do you have any questions? Mr. Clay?
Thanks, Chair. The adjacent neighbors raised concerns about backyard privacy from the laneway suite, proposed laneway suite. Did I see a balcony on your plans for the laneway suite?
Madam Chair, the balcony is actually located at the rear of the laneway suite.
Right.
It faces the public lane. So there's no other balcony facing the rear yard of the properties. If you scroll down, so there's the two windows that face, actually one drawing up. Yeah, that one. So it's a high window. It's more designed to bring in natural light. You can actually see out that window unless you're standing on a stool. And the balcony is located on the east side, which overlooks the public lane,
right,
and the cemetery at the rear.
Okay, that's helpful. Couple more questions. The third floor balcony, it looks like you have a wall on one side and it's open on the other side. Is that my?
With respects to the dwelling?
Yeah, it's a dwelling itself, yeah. I'm just looking at
yes,
the north elevation. Yeah.
Yes. On the east side, it has like a feature wall that comes out, and on the north side, it just has the open railing.
And there is a neighbor on the north side, is there?
Yes, there is.
Maybe we could put some privacy screening on that side?
That would be totally acceptable. We don't have an issue with that.
And the last thing is, I noticed you're proposing to have a asphalt driveway in behind the laneway suite?
Yes.
You are a little deficient of landscaping in between the laneway suite and the lane. So would you be able to replace that with permeable pavers?
Of course, I actually had brought that up to our client, and that was something that we were going to suggest by using permeable pavers in the rear yard to
Good.
allow more water to absorb into the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nipfel? You're muted, Carl.
There's a concern expressed by one of the neighbors, and I don't completely understand it, which has to do with the inability or the inability to erect a fence between properties because of your emergency access requirements. And I'm not clear of what restrictions that entails. Could you clarify? Do you know the objection that I'm talking about? And could you clarify it?
Certainly. Through Madam Chair, when we were designing the home together with Laneway Suites, we had discussed the option with our client and the adjacent neighbor that they were in interest to create basically a right-of-way between the two properties, that you would be able to use the right-of-way as an exit or a fire access route between the two properties, given that the existing house and the setbacks that we're proposing would allow for that access. There's no fence being put in that. It would just be a pedestrian access to access the lane. If not doing that in obtaining a building permit for the lane, if you approve the application, we may need to consider different options in terms of how to build the laneway suite. Ensure that we have the requirements to distance to the fire hydrant and provide enough time for fire to access the rear yard. So that it was an open discussion to see if they were open to creating a right-of-way in between the two houses, but they decided not to do so. So that's maybe where the fence comes up. The fence in the rear yard is our property line. There's no obstruction to the space between the two houses, because then we wouldn't even be able to access the rear yard as well. So it was just tied to the access.
In fact, I think that if I'm correct, we went through a lot of applications, but if I'm correct, these are the people that said that they felt that they couldn't have a dog because the dog couldn't be enclosed in the backyard. So could we scroll further into the rear yard there in the site plan? I just want to clarify. So there's no restriction. If your neighbors to the north want to put a fence up, they can.
Oh yes, there's currently a fence already there, but there's no restriction. They would run the fence to the existing stairs that they have. It's a small little access next to a basement walkout that's there. They would just terminate the fence there, but access to their yard and our yard would still be maintained.
Okay, and the other question I had to do is the placement of the laneway suite. By placing it as you have, there's a situation very similar to one that we actually just dealt with, where a house was extended further into the rear yard and it created privacy concerns. Can you clarify the reason for the placement of the laneway suite, why it isn't closer to the lane?
Well, the position of the laneway suite is there so that we can maintain a parking spot in the rear yard, access from the public lane, as we intend to do single-family dwelling with a secondary use in the basement. There's an existing aluminum clad garage structure to our north, and based on sun and orientation, that laneway suite would give some shadow early morning, but then throughout the day, as the sun comes and sets on the west side, I don't feel that would adversely impact or hinder the use of the rear yard. And it allows us to maintain a parking spot off of the rear lane.
Are there any other parking pads off of that laneway?
No, there's no other parking pads, but people do park behind the garages. As you can see that the house to the north at 93, same wall, some of the garages are pushed away from the rear lane, which allows parking to be done in the rear yard.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. We're ready to go into committee. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Vieira?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, I believe that the design proposal we put through is basically formulated around the existing footprint of the existing one-story dwelling. We are not extending past beyond our adjacent neighbors, and we feel that the application before you is minor in nature and it meets the four tests of the Planning Act.
Okay, let's take it into committee for a decision, panel members.
I think it is really well resolved, especially after the questions Kyle and I have asked. So I'm very happy to support this application.
Okay, did you want to move a motion then, or I don't think there's any other comments?
Yes, I would like to move a motion to approve this application.
So including forest
including
condition number
forest
1
condition.
and the condition for permeable pavers in the rear yard.
And I think the privacy screen as well.
And, okay, where's the privacy screen going?
I think it was on the north side of the third floor balcony.
Okay, all right. Okay, so those three conditions, Mr. Chang moves this. Do I have a seconder? That's seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 12, 79 NAIRN Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have one variance before us and one speaker. Do I have the agent? Oh, and Mr. Nipfel, you declared
address.
Oh, sorry, that's the next one.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead. What's your name?
Yes, it's Daniel Allen. My address is 66 Mortimer Avenue in Brampton.
Okay, I don't think we need a presentation. Anybody have any questions on this one? Okay, sir, we're ready to take this into committee. Anything you want to add before we make a decision? No?
I'm pretty sure it's minor in nature. I mean, it's the photos. Thanks.
All righty. Okay, panel members, we're in committee.
I'll do it again.
All right, go for it.
Oh, yes, I think it is extremely straightforward, and I like the fact that it doesn't reduce the rear yard landscape coverage, so I would like to approve it. And I don't think there's any other conditions.
No, none. Mr. Nipfel seconds, so motion to approve, moved by Mr. Chang, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? That carries unanimously, and Mr. Nipfel has a conflict on the next one, so it'll just be the three of us. So the next item is item 13, 118 Earl Grey Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs in our supplemental agenda. We have an arborist report prepared by Gerard Tomlinson Consulting, arborists. We have email correspondence from planning. We have forestry asking for condition number 2, and planning also has a condition. In the SUP, we have correspondence in support from number 120, which is adjacent, and we have opposition from the other adjacent neighbor at 116. And I'm showing 1 speaker in opposition. Do we have them also? Yeah? Okay. Do we have the agent on the line?
Yes, we do. Hello, my name is Cheryl Girodi, and I'm the architect for 118 Earl Grey project, and I'm at 46 Eastmount Avenue in Toronto.
Okay, you're aware of the planning condition?
I am aware of that. I believe that the owner, Barb Panter, would like to speak to this, and I believe she's registered to speak and present.
So I'd like you to split the time between the two of you, the 5 minutes, if you can. I'm going to need a presentation. I do have the neighbor at 116 listed to speak in opposition.
Very good.
So
Yes.
we'll start the clock now. So are you in the same room or
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Okay, so what do you want? How much time do you think she needs then?
I think she can take 2 minutes to add to what I would say.
Okay, so I'll let you know when you're at 3 minutes, so go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, the project is for both owners, a mother and a daughter, and the idea is to add a 1-story addition to the rear of the house in order to put in a bed sitting and ensuite to accommodate the owner, Maggie, so that she may function on 1 level of the house. And her daughter would have the 2nd and a partial 3rd floor, and to add to that 3rd floor about 3 feet in order to get a 2nd washroom up there, or ensuite up there. So we've approached this in a modest way. We're fully aware of the major tree, that silver maple that is in the rear, and we started actually off with talking with the arborist and structural engineers as to the way in which we could add the 1-story addition so as not to harm the roots of the tree. Very aware of that. But I'd like to address what is a very major issue, and that is that the neighbor at 116 was not consulted or advised of the addition. And yes, that's an oversight and unfortunate. And some of their concerns are very, very valid. They're excellent concerns that any addition might raise. But I think many of those can also be dealt with from this point on if we have a chance to go to permit and to talk with the contractor about those issues. So I wanted to raise that right up front rather than spend a lot of time talking about the addition. But there are 2 components, 1 to the 3rd floor to make an ensuite in the bedroom, and 1-story addition on the ground floor to allow and accommodate for operating on all 1 level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we can go to Barb Panter now.
Sure. Hi there. Thanks for giving us some time to speak. I think Cheryl outlined what we're wanting to do. My mom and I bought this house with the idea that
it would very likely be the last place that my mom lives, and we're needing to create space for her to be able to age in place. And it was an oversight that we deeply regret that we didn't involve our neighbors sooner. We're more than happy. We have already started conversations with them and hoping to continue those in order to mitigate any potential negative impacts that this addition will have. We also, I care very much about that gorgeous silver maple in our backyard, and we have taken steps to try to minimize any damage to that tree, and I'm a keen gardener and will continue to care for that tree. But yeah, so we're, I guess, just wanting to go forward and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I think we'll hold our questions till we hear from the opposition, and then we'll have both of you back. All right, do you have Michael White?
Michael White, you've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, firstly, there's some extra late materials for PDFs. Jordan uploaded them. No? Sorry.
When did you send them in?
This morning, I was doing it with Jordan Chow.
Okay, well, we don't have them here, so I'm not sure if staff
They're
can find them. Just give us a minute.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Alrighty, so
I'll state my name and start my presentation.
yep, and then as soon as you've done that, we'll start the clock.
Okay, good morning. My name is Michael White. I live at 116 Earl Grey Road, where I've resided here with my partner Diane and our family for 33 years. We live next door to the applicant and strongly oppose this application for the following reasons. Loss of light and sky. The proposed addition will eliminate natural light from entering our home's dining room, leaving it dark and uninviting. The roof line of the deck of the addition will be more than 3 feet above our existing window and extend the narrow alleyway by 13 feet to the west, and removing that light source and view of the sky from our home. Diane and I are both prone to seasonal affective disorder and the late fall and winter, and this loss of light and sky will affect us negatively. Privacy. If this development proceeds, there will be an excessive loss of privacy in 3 locations of our home. The proposed second-story rear deck will have the ability to look into our bathroom when standing at the rail. The second-story front deck will look into our front bedroom when looking to the southwest, and the proposed new kitchen window on the south wall will look directly into our dining room. Privacy screening on the second rear deck will reduce the light even more into our home. Flood risk. The drawings show the rear addition having a south-sloping roof that drains towards our property. We are at a lower elevation, and this would create a new flood risk. Currently, the roofs at 118 and 120 have drained by a downspout to the northern property line of 118. The water at ground level flows downhill south across the soft landscaping and is absorbed by the massive silver maple tree number 4. The submitted plans do not indicate that this will continue. Soft landscaping. The proposed rear addition creates a significant loss of soft landscaped area. When this area is combined with the area under the recently constructed 700 square foot 3-car garage at the back of 120, there is easily 1,000 square feet of new hard surfaces that the silver maple will have to contend with under its canopy. Arborist report. The arborist report does not show this maple has for the past 15 to 20 years hung over the western edge of the houses at 118 and 116. It was heavily pruned prior to the sale of the property to Barb and Maggie last year. We feel the arborist report underestimates the size and diameter of the tree. We contend that this is a significant inaccuracy and has affected the calculation of the root radius and canopy. Figure 4 on page 7 of the report demonstrates the tree is massive and it takes up about a third of the lot. This diameter is marked at only 4 feet 7 3/4 inches on the plan. Underestimation of the root radius is evident as the roots of this tree have in previous times entered the basement of our home. 12 years ago, we had to repair the floor drains because large roots had broken into the middle of the basement floor. We feel the soft landscaping needs to be maintained in order to protect the tree. In our opinion, the tree already is showing signs of stress recently, manifesting in more frequent loss of small branches in the summer. We applaud the addition of the possible green roof, but think there should be professional opinion regarding whether or not it will absorb and divert water away from the maple tree and affect its health. Conservatively, this tree is 80 years old and probably 50 to 60 feet tall. These maples live for 130 years plus. There is no report regarding the health impacts that this tree will face after this renovation. Finally, HVAC for the new additions will affect us very negatively due to the noise they will create. We have also had an opinion that the value of our house will be negatively impacted by the loss of light, sky, and open space. We feel the application should be rejected or at least deferred, considering the effects it will have on our family, home, and the Silver Maple and our neighborhood. Thank you to the committee and the staff of the COA for providing us with the opportunity to express our concerns and objections in a safe and welcoming environment. It is much appreciated. Another thing that I'd like to add is that both Diane and I work from home. The construction is going to affect and impact our income because there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot more trucks. We've already lived through renovations just up the street, and I know I'm rambling on. Maggie and Barb are great neighbors. Other than this, we have attempted to talk to them and have a compromise, but sorry, I'm very nervous.
Yeah, that's okay. So through your discussions, I understand you guys have been talking. Do you feel that things can be mitigated in any way? Are there any suggestions
as you
that
can
you
see
have?
In the picture, you can see that the second story rear, the rear addition is going to take light out of our house. That right now you're looking, that's sideways. Please ignore that. It's just gone sideways. So that's looking out our window. The red mark is where this addition is going to be. Now, if we can scroll to another one, all that light is going to be out of our house. If we scroll to another picture, that's the window that will be. That window will be completely blocked by the addition. Scroll down to the next one. The red line that I've put there is where the deck is going to be, and that narrow pathway is where the light is. The only light that will enter down the alleyway will be going down that. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. Anyway, that's our presentation. Thank
Okay.
you for listening. I really appreciate it.
I just want to read the conditions, just so you know, in case you haven't seen it, that planning is suggesting is to put opaque privacy screening to be added to the rear deck, permanent screening on the north and south edges to a minimum height of 1.5 meters measured from the floor of the deck.
Excuse me, but that will take more light out of our house.
I see. So
The one at the front,
you would not like to see that condition added then? Is that?
I would like to see the rear addition not be made, but if they put, yes, the rear deck is they're gonna be able to look into our bathroom, but if you put a screen up, then we won't get any light into the house. That's my problem. That's my dilemma. The front deck, I would like a screen on.
On the front deck. Okay. All right. Understood. Panel members, do you have any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Michael, for presenting that. Of course, I wish I had seen the drawings with the red marks on it in advance, because I would suggest to you that some of the perspective lines that you show are not quite correct. However, I think this is the most important picture. Can you go back to that very page 4? You're looking from your second floor. Am I not correct, Michael? I believe you're looking from your second floor. So the line that you do show, the red line you show there is correct. It would be in line with your second floor, with the roof of your first floor. And so that is more of an accurate drawing to show you. The one that you showed from the first floor, however, is not, in my opinion, accurate in terms of geometry. So that's one that we can certainly work out and can draw up and perhaps present to you and talk to you a bit more about it. All I can say is that short of not doing an addition, that of course there will be some blockage of light and blockage of views, and that it would be more or less a little bit less, not as deep as your first floor infill addition. But yes, there will be a wall there. We are close to the property line, so we would not be permitted to have any windows in there. You're very close to the property line, and you do have windows in there. In today's code, you would not be permitted those windows. I think you're somewhere certainly less than 3 feet away from the property line. So, you know, conditions changed over time, and permits change, and codes change, and bylaws change. But short of not having any addition, all I can really say to you is that, yes, there will be some blockage of light and views. In terms of the screening on the third floor, at the rear, certainly that can be worked out with the city, I'm sure, and yourselves, if that's going to be blocking out light. At the front, if there's screening that's needed, because I believe the screening was for the third floor at the rear and not at the front on the second floor. Certainly we can work something out there as well. I think that, you know, with the city, to hear back from the city on your concerns. But I think ultimately the only way to satisfy you is not to put an addition onto the house at the rear. In terms of the soft landscaping, no, Barb can speak to that, but I'll do that very quickly. The intent there is to not have foundations go through, solid foundations go through and destroy the roots. That's why we brought the arborist in first, is to talk with a structural engineer to discuss how we could do this on stilts, on pylons, in order to avoid damaging the roots. The second thing about the water will go under the addition and under the deck, and that's the way in which we serve water to the roots. We'll be dispensing any kind of runoff onto the property as by law, but in this particular case, in particular to support the roots. The soft landscaping right now is grass and shrubbery and low growing things. That remains. And the pathway you see there is not concrete. The pathway you see there is wood chips. So, you know, as Barb mentioned, she is looking to maintain as much soft landscaping at the front as she has done so far as a new owner, and at the rear as well. So I'm trying to address a number of those things that are not necessarily in the COA purview, but are part of building a permit purview. We can discuss those certainly, absolutely, before we go to building permit if we get approval. Thank you.
Panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? Mr. Clay?
Thanks, Chair. I note that the planning staff recommendations are specific to the third story, which is quite considerably set back. So I get that. I got the impression from Mr. Wright that their bigger concern is the second story balcony, and his concern about putting privacy screening there versus allowing light to come through. So I'm going to suggest that we do put privacy screening on the second floor deck, but I'm wondering if maybe like frosted glass or something like that might be a better solution, so as to not totally affect Mr. Wright's light. Would you be open to that?
Well, I think you know, some of those things are excellent suggestions. One of the reasons that the deck is pushed further north as possible, and perhaps there's a way that we move the deck a little bit further to the north. In other words, not take up as much, have it a little deeper, but further to the north so that we get a little bit more space up there. That's also a possibility, perhaps, to reshape
Yeah, that is, but
deck.
we find ourselves in a situation where we're trying to address something right now, and moving the deck isn't
Yeah.
really something that we can do here today. So
No, of course, but screening, yes, I agree if that will work for
yeah,
Michael and Diane, yes.
I'm going to use the word translucent or something like that. Aaron,
Correct.
being an architect, will probably be able to confirm whether that's the right adjective or not. But also, I presume you're going to put some sort of privacy screening on the first floor deck, at least on Mr. Wright's side.
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
can do that, yes.
Yeah, so those aren't specified in the planning comments, so I'd like to maybe add those to what planning's conditions are.
That's fine, yes, thank you.
Any other questions, panel members?
Aaron, is that the right term? Translucent?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They can actually specify a theme on the glass, or if they prefer to use plexiglass, there are multiple ways to do that. But I
Okay.
think translucent would be a best way to allow light to pass through.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then let's take it into committee.
I'm happy to speak to this one, Chair, if you like. I fully appreciate Mr. Wright's concerns, and no one necessarily loves having an addition being put right next to them, but this is a modest addition. This is simply on the ground floor, a modest extension to the rear, a slight addition to the second and third stories, which I don't think is unreasonable. And I don't think would be out of character with the type of redevelopment that's happening in this neighborhood. I do think it's a supportable application, and I think we can maybe find some ways, as we've discussed, to address the concerns that Mr. Wright has expressed by some screening. So I'm going to suggest, propose approval of this application. I think the two, just as a context, the two variances that are actually before us are really quite minor and modest. So most of this dwelling is being built as of right. I'll move approval subject to a modified planning conditions, but also add to that that on the second floor balcony, translucent screening be used on both sides. And on the first floor balcony, that privacy screening be installed to 1.6 meters. And I think there is a forestry number 2 condition.
Yep, that's correct. Okay, so that motion with the conditions outlined by Mr. Clay, moved by Mr. Clay, and are you seconding it, Aaron, or are you? Yeah, okay, seconded by Mr. Cheng. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And Carl, if you can hear me, we're starting item number 14 now.
Okay, you hear me?
I can. Okay, next item number 14, 105 Turnberry Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a map illustration of 3-story homes in the surrounding areas from the agent, as well as a map illustration of properties that gave letters of support. We have support from 21 form letters from residents on Turnberry Avenue, Algarve Crescent, and Estoril Terrace. That includes number 107 Turnberry, which is adjacent, and number 10 Estoril Terrace came in late in the supplemental agenda. We have correspondence expressing interest that it came from a person with no address provided and from 101 Turnberry. Correspondence in opposition from 115, 103, which is the other adjacent neighbor, and 101 Turnberry. I am showing 2 opposition speakers. Yeah, we have both of them. Do I have the agent on the line?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I can. If you can identify yourself and for the record, and once you've done that, we'll start the clock. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Gabriel Frasson of Moretto Design, 29R Atlantic Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. And I would like to present my proposal here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it takes
Okay.
us a minute to find it because we have a supplemental and our regular agenda, so
Okay.
it takes a minute. That's what's on the screen now? Any particular page?
No, I'd like to go walk through the variances if that's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the variances are, the first variance is the sidewall, which, first of all, I'd like to note that there are 3-story homes on this row as well, on Turnberry. And so the sidewall, obviously, would be reflective of that, for that variance. What we're requesting is a third floor addition with the front mudroom attached to the front of the home. That would be basically a covered porch, and it would not extend into the basement. So that would also address the front yard setback from 5.48 meters to 3.7. And then we would have 3 and 4 are conditions that are existing at the moment, and so they're existing conditions, and so we would just essentially be increasing the height of the house and also the setbacks to where the existing conditions are. Number 5, we have the 10 meter to 10.05, and that's a condition that I can actually bring down to 10 meters. So I would quite readily and happily decrease that to 10 meters. The space index obviously is the addition of the 3rd floor and also of the mudroom in the front would bring this floor space index to 101.17. For number 7, where we have the canopy setbacks, the requirement being 2.5 and 0.3, we could also adjust those setbacks to reflect the requirement without any issue.
Okay, so can you stop the clock for a second? So can we just go back? Are you making amendments? Because if you are, let's just do that now. So are you amending variance number 1 to 10 meters?
No, yeah, I can amend variance number 1 and number 5 to 10 meters.
Okay, so variance number 1, which is the height of all exterior main walls facing a side lot line, will be 10 meters instead of 10.05. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let me write this down first. So, all right. And then, what did you say? Number 7, was it?
Number 5.
Number 5. Okay, so that also changes to 10 meters.
Correct, which then would not be a requirement.
And then did you say you were deleting 1, 7 or 8, I thought?
No, 7 and 8, I could quite happily follow the requirement of 2.5 meters
Oh, so number 7, so that means you would delete that variance. You say you can comply, is that correct? With the front addition canopy will be located 0.22 meters from the side? I'm not sure what.
No, actually, sorry. No.
Okay.
It's actually the second one, B. Instead of a 2.22, 0.22, I would bring it to 0.3.
Number 8.
So that's variance number 8?
Well, there's actually 7 has 2 parts, part 1 and part 2.
Right.
So part 2, I would bring it to 0.3 meters instead of 0.22.
Okay, just not, and number 8 also?
Number 8 would, yes, also be 10 meters.
0.3, you mean?
Oh, I have number 8 as,
Like we're looking at the notice here and I'm getting confused. I don't want to make a mistake here, so it's on the screen here. So our variances are as per the notice.
oh, I see, okay.
Yeah?
Madam Chairman, I think number 8 he was deleting, if I understood.
Well, that's what I thought I heard also, but
Right.
let's
So
look at the notice because I don't want to make a mistake here if we're amending
Yes.
things.
Okay. Yeah, so that notice number 8
Yeah.
would go to 0.3.
So variance number 8
That's
goes
correct.
from 0.22 meters to 0.3.
That's correct.
Okay. And if staff, can you guys just scroll up? Ken, so just double check that variance number 1 is now 10 meters and variance number 5
Is 10 meters.
so that can be deleted then, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're deleting number 5.
That's correct. It's a matter of 2 inches, so.
Okay, so number 1 goes to 10 meters. Number 5 gets deleted and variance, now I forgot to write it down, 8.
The variance 8 gets deleted as
8
well.
is 0.3 meters.
That's correct.
Okay, and 7 stays the same
7
or
stays.
it's also 0.3?
7 would stay to 0.3, that's correct.
Also 0.3.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And number 9 would also go to 10 meters.
Okay, so
That's a
we're
diff-
deleting number 9 also
Yes.
then.
That's correct. That's from the old bylaw.
Okay, I hope I can read my writing when we get down the
Through you,
road. I
Madam
don't have a
Chair,
lot of
city
space
staff
here.
can confirm that variance number 1 is amended, variance number 5 and 9 are deleted, and variance number 7 and 8 are amended.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you
Okay.
so you have 2 minutes and 45 seconds left, so continue.
Okay, yes. I'd also like to address my client. The owner has a canvass the neighborhood for approvals and has discussed with the neighbors. Recently, there hasn't been a discussion with the neighbor, and it's I'll say that it is an ongoing discussion. I just wanted to address some of the issues on their side with regards to, from 103, that the noise pollution is a concern also to my client because they will also be living in the property while the construction is ongoing. And also as far as safety concerns, my client also has children, and so safety is of utmost concern, not only to himself, but also to the neighbors. Construction will happen as much as possible in their backyard and garage as far as the storage of materials. There will be some impact on the street during when demolition requires some garbage containers and bins for disposal, but that will also be kept at a minimum. And construction might very well happen during the wintertime. So, and we'd like to also note that the front extension is only for the mudroom and not the entire house. Okay.
Alrighty. Anything else? If not, I'll go to the opposition and then we'll have you back again. You'll have another 5 minutes, but you have about a minute left.
Yeah, and again, this is a third-story addition is not uncommon in the neighborhood or for these homes. So that's something this is the second committee of adjustment that I've had for these homes, and so I feel confident that we can address any issues that are potential concerns. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Do you have Ms. Silva?
Sandra Silva, you've been unmuted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name for the record and your address, and then you have 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Sandra, and I'm speaking on my parents' behalf, Maria da Silva and Albino Rosa. My parents are the owners of 103 Turnberry.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My parents have lived here for 20 years. They are the immediate neighbors of 105 Turnberry. They share a walkway and a front yard with them. They are not okay with their neighbor's home being pushed outward, as this will affect the character of their home and street. This may even decrease their property value, as their home will be set back. My parents don't want their home set back, as this will block any direct sunlight to their garden and living room. This will impede their view of the street and will affect the appearance of their home, as the homes will no longer all be aligned equally. We're also very concerned with the safety of the kids during any construction, considering how close the properties are to one another. In regards to the third story, homes in this subdivision which do have a third story were originally built this way by the builder. The one home on Aldridge Street, which did get approved for a third story, is a corner unit which allows for a lot of space to proceed with construction. They, however, are not pushing their home forward. We really feel this type of construction will have a negative impact on the appearance of our home and street, as this street is made up of semis. We really feel this type of construction makes sense for a fully detached home, not a semi-detached in a street where all homes were built equally aligned and designed. And I'd also like to comment on Moretti, how he said they will be living in the home during construction. I actually spoke to the owner outside on the weekend, and I asked him this question, and I was told that due to health issues, they will not be living in the home during the construction, as he cannot take on any dust or pollution in there. That is all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Panel members, any questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Do you have the next speaker?
Samantha, you've been unmuted.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Samantha Moniz. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents, Helena and Jose Moniz, from 101 Turnberry Avenue. So our main concern is that these are not minor variances to us. These are considered a major. Aside from the addition of the third floor, changing the characteristics of the neighborhoods, as this home would no longer match its neighboring semi-detached properties, our main concern for us is the front yard addition to the mudroom. This addition would completely change the aesthetics of the streetscape the entire community has had since the original developer followed the city zoning bylaws. The minimum requirement of the setback is 5.4 meters. The altered dwelling would be located 3.7 meters from the front line lot. These measurements also do not include the front porch and the staircases that will also be extended, leaving only 1.62 meters of visibility for us, which also has a tree causing a delay in our visibility as well. We would essentially no longer have visibility to our west. We've also had another neighboring on our east side advising us that they are also considering having these done if this gets approved by the city. We would essentially be boxed in on both the east and the west with no visibility except towards our north. We ask that the Committee of Adjustment take our concerns into a consideration, that we would essentially no longer have the property that my parents bought 20 years ago. So I know that he had mentioned that there are other houses that are 3-story homes, but however, there is no other property that is semi-attached on both sides that only has one home that has extended their permit height. And that's all I have to say on behalf of my parents.
Thank you very much. Panel members, do you have any questions for the speaker? Okay, thanks a lot, Ms. Moniz. Mr. Frasson, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Great. Can you speak to the issues raised, please?
Yes, I can speak to the issues raised. Yes, the mudroom, the addition will be attached. I'd like to also address the fact that the entire house is not being pushed forward. It's just the first floor mudroom. The second story, essentially, it will be an addition, an enclosed porch to the front of the house. Also, the 5.48 meters do not take into account the staircase that do exist, which actually create a 2.08 meter projection to the front of the house. So we are requesting a 1.7 meter encroachment into the front. Of course, any issues with the trees will be, protection for the tree will be carefully installed as per requirement. And again, this is an addition that's a requirement for my home, for the homeowner, just because they have a growing family, and these homes do not offer a great deal of space. When you walk in, you're basically walking into the living room. So they're looking for a sheltered area where we can, they can actually use as a more or less as a mudroom. So.
Okay, let me see if, is there something else you wanted to add?
No, I would also ask if there's anybody, if the members of the committee have any questions or concerns that I might address. Also, there was no comment from the city planning department as well that I've been actively looking for.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions? No? Carl, you look very serious. Any questions?
I'm having trouble with this application. That's why I look serious, but I don't have any questions. No.
Okay. All right, we don't, there don't appear to be any further questions. Let's take it into committee, panel members. Mr. Nifl.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is, I would guess, likely to perhaps be a minor position compared to my colleagues, but I'm unable to support this application. I think the two revisions and the manner in which they're being accommodated are in fact inconsistent with a really consistent architectural expression on the street. Adjustments are supposed to respect existing character and are to be gentle, and I don't think these are gentle adjustments. The protrusion of the mudroom into the front yard in other areas might not be difficult or offensive, but in this particular case, it does block horizontal views down the street. It is inconsistent with the existing front face of the buildings, and I think is out of character. There is, with the adjustments made, the height itself in terms of numbers is not an issue, but I do question the way in which the third floor is being accommodated. It's essentially a straight wall at the front. There's a protrusion for a seating area and a slight tilt to the front wall to make it mimic a mansard roof. But all the other adjacent buildings have pitched roofs with projected dormers. I personally, I'm unable to support this. I think it's an intrusion into a rather delightful and consistent area, and I'd be open to the expansion being undertaken in a way that was more physically supportive of the existing character.
Anyone else? Mr. Clay?
Well, as Carl predicted, I'm going to take a slightly different view. I don't see this as being offensive. I would note that the rear yard is of all these row homes and or semis is really quite small. There really isn't much or any opportunity for expansion into the rear. Any need to expand space looks like it has to go up. I would note that even though I did hear one of the opponents make the point that there are existing 3 stories along there that they were built as original, and they still do have that architectural feature of the peak in the front. But notwithstanding that, there are 3 stories along this stretch, and I did go around the neighborhood, and there are other 3-story homes in this area, even though it is characterized principally by similar looking semis and row homes. but I don't find it as egregious given the constraints of the property and its location relative to the rest of the neighborhood. I'm on the fence about the mudroom. Carl makes a good point that there really are no other protrusions off the front facades of any of those homes. And I do think that might actually, even though there are trees along the front, I do think that might have a negative impact on the adjoining and adjacent neighbors. So I guess in some, I'm not uncomfortable with the variances that are requested with respect to the size and the third story addition. But I'd like to hear colleagues' views on the front extension for the mudroom.
No, it's my turn. Well, I'm kind of more on Larry's side. I think the size and the scale is acceptable. The mudroom, again, this is something that I always find it very difficult to make a decision, that I don't like the look of it, but does it contribute to a reason to oppose it in the minor variance? Like, are we trying to control the design? But Carl has a point that we have to maintain a certain level of consistency on the street. And so, but I tend to try not to over control of what applicant can be doing. Even though I'm an architect, I think, you know, it's not something I like to see, but I think they have the freedom to do that as long as, you know, it's within reason. So I wish the design would be, like Carl said, would be a bit more sensitive to the street. But is that a reason to oppose the whole application? That might not be strong enough. So I wish the front part can be redesigned a bit and achieve the same result. Having the same size and scale would be perfect. That would be a much more supportable application. I don't know if we can pick and choose.
Sure we can.
Yeah, I actually, looking at the street, I agree with Carl in terms of, like, we are to look at the prevailing character on the street. And this block, it's very uniform. Yeah, there's some differences, but there are 3 stories, but the design is more in keeping. And as I think one of the speakers mentioned, this looks more like a box at the front, whereas the ones that have the 3 stories, they still have the peaks in the front. And so, yeah, I don't think it fits within the character, although it's got to do more with the mudroom and the way the third story's been put on.
I should clarify, I'm not opposed to the expansion in size. My concern has to do with the way in which that's been addressed, and I don't believe that that's consistent with the street. So my concern has to do with the manner in which the additional size has been accommodated, not so much the size itself. I think there are ways to, as Aaron said, to address the street in a more positive way. And the mudroom, I think, is a slightly more difficult situation because you really can't make it go away, and yet there is nothing even remotely like it on the neighbors. So just to clarify, I'm not opposed to the extra space. I'm concerned with the way in which it's been masked and configured in a way that I don't think is consistent with neighbors.
All right. Well.
So I guess the option is either we asked him to resubmit, deferral, or just
you know,
not support it.
I can go back to the agent and ask if he'd be amenable to a deferral, if that's what's something the members would like me to do. Is that a yes?
Say yes, please.
Mr. Frassen, Are
Yes.
you there? We're just out of committee. My only question is, are you open to a deferral so that you
Yes,
can?
absolutely.
Yes, you are?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, panel members, we're back in committee. It sounds like the agents listened to some of our comments and is amenable to a deferral to revisit this.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to defer this proposal. And I think we can add that this has to do with the having a design that is consistent with the streetscape, with the neighborhood is a very important factor that the panel would like to see next time.
Okay, and we're deferring the application as amended. So with the 4 amendments, so the deletion of variance 5 and 9, variance 1 changes to 10 meters, and 8 and 7 to 0.3 meters. But Sabrina has them all noted, so. Do I have a seconder for the deferral motion? Mr. Nipfel, all in favor? So the motion's moved by Mr. Cheng, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Okay, so the deferral carries. So the application has been deferred so that the applicant can revisit the design to have it more in keeping with the streetscape. Okay, item number 15, 37 Burnfield Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, presentation materials from the agent. We had a late receipt of correspondence from planning that was in our supplemental agenda, and basically they were supporting the transportation report's opposition to variance number 2 and asking for refusal of variance number 2. Correspondence in interest from the adjacent neighbor at 39 and opposition from number 49, and I'm only showing the agent as a speaker. Okay, do we have the agent on the line?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Ida Evangelista, 53 Bentworth Avenue, Toronto. I've just...
Yeah, just to, I guess you're aware of the transportation recommendation and supported by planning for refusal of variance number 2.
Madam Chair, yes, I've just joined the Burnfield team, and I actually was going to remove variance 2. We are okay with that. I've explained it to the owners and to the architect.
Okay, so you're basically deleting variance number 2?
Yes.
Okay, so panel members, we're only looking at 1 variance now. So let me see if there are any questions for you. Mr. Clay has one.
Yeah, sure. Ida, so with removing that, does that change your design or configuration of the front porch reconstruction?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, Member Clay, it does not. So what we have, so I know you've gone through a couple of the letters of opposition. So we have underneath the front porch will be hollow, so that will remain exactly the same. Nothing else changes, other than we will not have a front yard parking pad.
Okay.
Mr. Cheng?
I'm just curious, would that trigger to some sort of parking deficiency if you remove it?
No, it will not.
As long as you are confident of that.
Mr. Niffel? Oh, hold on, Sabrina?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, does the purpose of application need to be amended?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why Carl had his hand up. Carl?
That was going to be one point. The second one was, I wonder if Ms. Evangelista could tell us how will the space where the parking space was proposed, how will it be treated? Will it just be turned over to grass? There will be no parking, I gathered.
That is correct. Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. It will be landscaped. Soft landscaping.
Okay, and then the purpose of the application would remove the reference to a front yard parking pad.
Correct.
Good, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Ida, no more questions. We're ready to make a decision. Anything else you want to add before we go into commission or into committee?
Madam Chair, I believe the application is self-explanatory. The neighbors didn't have, their concerns were more with the parking pad, and that has been rectified. So in closing, I believe this is, pretty standard. As you saw through my submission, there are other homes that have altered their front yard, with the new entry. I'm tongue-tied today. A new entry into the basement at the front yard.
You and me both. Okay, so let's take it into committee for a decision then. Mr. Clay.
Sure, I'm happy. I'll try not to tongue tie myself as well. I agree with Ida. This is very straightforward now, and she's right. The prevailing character on the street is there's an awful lot of front basement walkouts. It's not inconsistent with what happens in these types of neighborhoods. So I would agree that, and I'll move approval of the amended application, removing variance number 2.
Alrighty, so that motion moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, I think you're back for the next one, which is item number 16. We have before, it's 1673 to 1675 Bathurst Street. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, previous decision affecting the property, presentation materials from Ms. Evangelista, and email correspondence from development planning, transportation, and they don't have any concerns. All right, Ida, you're back. You're speaking on behalf of the owner?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm speaking on behalf of the owner. This is an application that was before you several months ago. We are not changing the footprint of the building. Through my submission, you'll see the variances. I have highlighted them. As I said, the footprint is not changing. We are simply redemising the walls on the interior to add additional units. Planning have no concerns. Transportation also have no concerns with what we are proposing. They are suitable. They're okay with the number of parking spaces that we are proposing. We are also we also meet our landscaping, and it is strictly for the interior. And again, through the submission that I've included, you'll see that this stretch of Bathurst, there are many apartment buildings. Mm-hmm. So this is something that is very characteristic to the neighborhood.
Okay. Any questions, panel members? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Cheng.
Sorry, I actually have a question about the variance. Okay. Well, variance number 1. Yes, it's about variance number 1.
Yes.
So can you just give us a little bit quick explanation why it cannot be achieved?
So what we have, we've created just a walkway across the front, as I've highlighted. It's just a simple walkway so that everybody, they can go from the front to the from the front to the back, or from the back to the front, because you'll see on my first page, subject property, you'll see there currently is a walkway. So we're just adding another one on the other side. We're not derailing from what is currently there.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not.
So what exactly does this bylaw?
We don't have a landscape variance.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if you refer to page, sorry, I just walked away for one sec. So my page 2 will show you variances 1 and 2. So across the front, you'll see variance 1 on the, there's a photo, and then I've also included like an aerial. So variance 1, you'll see there's a small walkway. It currently exists on the south side. We've added a small portion on the north side.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
I'll get it. No, thank you.
Okay, we're back in committee. Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As the applicant indicated, there's a lot of apartment buildings of very similar form to this one. This is not going to change in terms of the building form itself. The addition, I would argue, is going to be imperceptible to anyone. I can't see that there's a negative implication of the application, so I'd like to move approval without condition.
Okay, Mr. Clay, second, so motion. Yeah.
Just a comment. These are the kinds of things that are welcome. You know, adding rental accommodation onto main arterial roads are quite welcome. So kudos to the owner on this one.
And in a way that doesn't disrupt the appearance of the area, which is my other kudo to her as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Lots of positive comments for you today, Ida. All right.
Wonderful.
So motion.
I hope it continues.
So the motion to approve the application is moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, item number 17, 88 Admiral Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, revised site plan, 3 photographs of the green roof, covering letter from the agent, a previous decision affecting this property, and forestry is asking for condition number 2. We only have the agent as a speaker. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Members, my name is Roy Vance. I'm the owner of Fluid Living Studio. We're the designer responsible for the design of the coach house.
Okay, panel members, we have 2 variances before us. Do you have any questions for Mr. Vance? No?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have a late registered speaker to this. I don't know if they're in support, opposition, or concern.
Let me go to the speaker then. Do you have a name for me?
Yep. Rebecca Scoville, you have been unmuted.
Hi there, thank you. My name is Rebecca Scoville. I live at 88 Admiral Road. And it's really just a question for the panel. I find myself with windows now facing the back of our house where we have bedrooms, and the owner has done some beautiful planting in front, and I know this is about planting a green roof. I'm just wondering if it's ever part of a variance to also include planting to hide windows. It looks like, and I'm wondering if this green roof would also be on top of the carport, which would in fact then cover the windows and give some screening there.
So could I ask you to spell your last name, please?
It's Scovvel.
And you're at 88 Admiral?
That's right.
Okay. Well, let's ask the...
So Chair, hold on here a second. So the speakers at the house that this application is for?
Yeah, I'm assuming, are you renting there, or?
No, I'm sorry. I'm 2 houses down at 84 Admiral Road.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying, because doesn't. So this would impact you, the planting and on the green roof, etc.
Yeah, I can see it from my backyard, and I'm sure the planting will be lovely. I'm just wondering about screening for the windows that now face the house.
All right, Mr. Bansi, can you please answer those questions?
With respect to the green roof, the green roof is on the coach house itself, as well as the extended carport. We do view this as a positive asset and a welcome feature for any building in the city. So being viewable from other homes, we view that as something positive rather than a simple rubber membrane roof. So that addresses that feature. And as far as the windows, there are no immediate plans to plant any additional trees to hide any windows. Some large trees were planted at both the rear of the property and the north side of the property to offer privacy for both homes adjacent. As it is, we don't feel that any additional planting would be necessary at this time.
Okay, does that answer your question, Rebecca?
Further planting.
I'm sorry,
Will,
sorry, you were cut off, so I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
oh, okay, thank you. I just have the question if the planting that is yet to come will provide screening in front of the windows for 86 and 88 Admiral, because as is, there is no screening and they look into our windows.
Okay, all right, thanks for clarifying. Okay, Mr. Bance?
Yeah, as I iterated earlier, there are no plans for any additional planting other than the planting that's been done to date. There's some large trees that have been planted in the form of a hedge to provide privacy for neighboring parties, and we've discussed at length with neighbors on both the north and south sides of the property, and they have no objections to the situation with respect to the planting or the coach house itself.
Okay. Well, perhaps if there's further clarification required, the owner can speak to the homeowner at 84 also. Just, I think she would like to make sure there is screening between her.
Yeah, she absolutely, and any questions could be also directed to us acting as agent.
Okay. All right. So that's great. Perhaps you can have a conversation following the hearing in the next couple days to clarify.
Sure.
Okay, great. Any other questions, panel members? No? Okay. All right, let's take it into committee for a decision.
Well, I'll start. I always like the fact that the coach house or anything built at the backyard is right at the back instead of creating an empty space. So I don't have any problem about the the rear setback, and the height seems reasonable. So I am happy to support the full application.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes, if my colleagues don't have any, well, I think Carl might have an opinion, so we'll listen to them
Carl,
first.
was that a second, or did you want to add something?
No, I agree with Aaron. I was going to second the motion.
Oh, there you
Okay,
go.
thank you. So yes, I'll have a motion to approve the application.
Okay, so motion and
forestry, isn't there forestry number two?
Forestry
yeah.
number two?
Forestry
Yep.
number 2, please. Yes.
Okay, so a motion to approve, including the forestry condition, moved by Mr. Chang, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 18, 610 Mortimer Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Forestry is asking for condition number 2. We have only the agent listed as a speaker, and we have 4 variances before us. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Shirzadfar, and I'm the agent on behalf of the homeowners at 610 Mortimer Avenue.
Okay, good afternoon. Panel members, any questions for the agent? No? Okay, sir, not seeing any questions. We're ready to take it into committee. Anything you want to add before we do so?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right. We're in committee, panel members. Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I personally don't have any difficulty with this application. This is happening a lot. It's a really simple top-up of a bungalow. I would argue that it's being done respectfully and that it doesn't impose any hardships on neighbors or the immediate community. I can't see there being a downside to its approval, so I would move approval with forestry number 2 as a condition.
Okay, do I have a seconder? G, You guys both put your hands up at the same time. Who wants to be?
Let Aaron have it.
All right. Okay, motion to
Thank you.
approve, moved by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Mr. Cheng, including forestry number 2. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, final item this morning is number 19, 25 Alma Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have 2 variances before us, and I only have the agent as a speaker. Do I have the agent on the line?
Andrew, you've been unmuted.
No. Hi, my name is Andrew Miski. I'm the agent for this addition.
Hi, Andrew. Panel members, any questions? Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. You're asking for a variance for the height of your garage. And I'm just looking at your plans. So 2 questions. One, what's the added height for? And 2, what's the character of the laneway? Because your renderings sort of look like it shows it's right next to a larger structure. So what's the kind of character of the garages on the back of that lane?
Initially, all the garages were of this size, but the neighbor to the east, number 23, just completed their laneway house, a 2-story laneway house with a basement. And then 2 houses to the west is another laneway house that was just completed. So the character it's in transition. There are quite a few precedents for more height. The property itself is roughly 800 meters from Queen Street. It's a few lots over from Dufferin. So it's a very urban location. And if you look on sheet number, there's a cross section. It's on sheet A5.6 on page 7. So the owner's garage, it's not wide enough to accommodate both their cars. So currently he rents a space elsewhere. So we can't fit 2 cars side by side. So they have to go either below ground or raised above. This was the most cost effective and cleanest solution.
So you're basically stacking 2 cars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, with a car lift.
Right.
And I'm showing the original garage roof height and the proposed increase.
Yeah. Now, normally we kind of try to avoid excess height on garages, but in this case, in my view, if there are several that are already in excess of that, and this is a purpose other than just simply having extra space in the roof for storage, then that's helpful to know.
There's also a variance for the rear yard landscaping. We're not touching the backyard. So it's currently a family of 3 that's growing. They have a dog, so they can't have too much grass. It doesn't survive. There's also the walkway that is semi-permeable already. So there really isn't much we can do with that backyard. And it's typical of the area.
In terms of the backyard landscaping, can you clarify? It's because of the dog. It's almost all paved, right?
So right at the house at the back, that area is paved, and then beyond it is patio pavers. They have a dining area there with chairs for the family and a play space for their child. And then the permeable paving. So what they constructed is it's pavers spaced periodically with, I believe it's a moss or grass in between them. So it is rather permeable. And to the top side to the east, there's a strip of soft landscaping for a flower bed.
Yeah.
And the garage is another pretty large flower bed.
I guess I'm not convinced by the argument about the dog. And very personally, I have a dog and I have a backyard that is completely landscaped, as do all of my neighbors on the street. And normally that wouldn't be of any concern to this panel, except that the provisions about soft landscaping in the bylaw are there to allow for some control over water drainage so that it doesn't pond and create problems for neighbors. Is there a possibility that you could increase the area that says existing patio paver? Yeah, okay, you've got the same thing on your screen. Where it says existing patio pavers, is there any way in which a larger portion of that could be soft landscaping and still accommodate the pet? I certainly am not speaking against having dogs. I love dogs, but I don't think you have to actually pave the whole backyard because you've got a dog.
Is there a percentage that you're looking to?
Well, I think the bylaw percentage is a reasonable one. Just let me revisit it, but my feeling at the time when I looked at the agenda was that you could probably, I thought you could probably accommodate this. You've got 12.7% and you need 25. So you need to actually double the amount of soft landscaping, which according to your site plan, if it's accurate, is that's not a lot of soft landscaping. So I guess what I'm arguing is, could you accommodate not having variance number 2?
So that variance doesn't include the permeable paving walkway?
No, I know that, yeah.
So would you be okay with the 20% rear yard? Because it doesn't include that permeable paver walkway?
It's an improvement over what's there. I frankly, speaking back up a bit, speaking to Mr. Clay's point, we normally would have some concern with the height of the garage, but as you've indicated, there are other garages of similar heights or perhaps even higher in the area, and the way in the use of that extra height it seems reasonable. Actually, it's a very clever way of getting 2 cars into a space where you can't park them side by side. So I'm not having any difficulty with variance number 1. I do have trouble with variance number 2, and if you could provide greater soft landscaping, that would, from my perspective, make the application a lot more agreeable. If you could bring it to 20%, sure, but we need to know exactly what the number of square meters was for that as well. It's assuming my colleagues agree with this, but I would encourage you to increase the amount of soft landscaping, and I'm in your hands as to how far you can go. 20% to me sounds reasonable.
So I'll calculate the exact number that's needed right now.
So I hate these kind of negotiations, but I don't know why, if you can go to 20%, why can't you just go to 25 and get rid of it? I mean, that's an extra, basically, if you look at the square meterage, you're looking to add 12 square meters of additional green space. So it's just a matter of pulling those pavers.
Well, and my point was, if you look at the existing soft landscaping, it's very small. So basically it's doubling that. And I'd have absolutely no problem with this application if you remove variance number 2, and I think it's very doable.
I actually agree with everything that's been said. If you comply, your patio is still larger, assuming the drawing is correct, than the soft landscaping would be.
And you still got the permeable pavers if you want to keep those on the side.
Yeah.
And the dog will love rolling in the grass.
Just stay away from the skunks, huh, Carl?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll do the quick calculation on how much we need if you need an actual square meter figure.
Well, if you're going to, hold on a second. If you're going to do 25%, I agree with Larry. The 5% is very minor. If you can provide 25%, then you don't need variance number 2. And what I'm hearing from my colleagues, and I agree, is it doesn't look like you need that variance. It looks like you could accommodate 25%, which then means you don't need a variance.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Okay, so are you then deleting variance number 2?
Yes. Yeah, we'll delete it.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions, panel members?
Nope.
All right, let's take it into committee for a decision then. Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that this proposal is substantially improved with the removal of variance number 2. And as indicated before by Larry, there is some precedent for a higher garage, and the garage in this case is being used to, a higher garage is being used to accommodate 2 cars that can't be provided side by side. I think all things considered, this is a very reasonable solution to a very practical problem. I'd like to move approval and without condition.
Okay, so approving the application as.
Oh, sorry, as amended with
Yeah, deleting variance number 2. So that's moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. Can we take a break till 1:25 then? I mean 2:25? Yeah? Okay, panel will come back at 2:25. So to those of you listening, we're running a bit behind, but not too bad. So hopefully we can catch up this afternoon. See you guys later. Thanks.